Is it real? Is it true? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it StreamYard getting their shit together? I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening. I am not the cool crypt keeper. I am the cemetery man from Salem, Mass. Always taking aims and kicking candy ass, live and in living color here with you only on the graveyard. Yes, ladies and gents. I don't know what happened. StreamYard had a message as soon as I logged in. It said, we are experiencing high traffic and you are not able to go live right now. I set up the show like usual. I waited 30 minutes. I don't know what the hell happened, but it would not let me go live until, I guess, nearly a 15-minute rain delay, if you will, only on Grande's Graveyard. So I hope that you're taking your ponchos off. I hope you got your popcorn ready, because tonight we will dive into season numero cuatro of Tales from the Crypt. Yes, boils and ghouls. Yes, tonight, Tales from the Crypt season number 4. Now, I'm very excited. Sorry about this delay. I really am. There was nothing I could. It was not my internet. It was not anything. It was, for whatever reason, StreamYard just was not working. So I have no idea. I only could see one other stream that was currently going on that went live before me, and they must have had no technical issues like I did. So I blame the website. I blame StreamYard. I blame the movies. Not really, because I'm not a pussy. But let's get to comments, because you all were here far before I was live and in living color, ladies and gents. What do we got here? We got Miss C saying, ciao, Grande and Gravy audience. Ciao, Miss C. Hope all is well with you. We got Joe Mama. Let's go. Let's go, Joe Mama. What's going on? Hello, kitties. Yes, Hers Hill has got his inner crypt keeper on. So welcome, my friend. Hope all is well. I see some little extravaganza on that one. That's pretty cool. My bad. I thought it said horse, not hearse, but very appropriate name. We need a hearse to take us to the cemetery man only on the graveyard. Yes, Ghostface Brett was in the house before we went live. What's going on, Brett? That was my own comment. Clicking on my own comments. That's what it is. Sup, Grande. Oh, bummer. Does this mean we have to cancel? We didn't have to cancel, but I don't think we're going to be doing any screen sharing, because I'm deathly afraid of screen sharing now that StreamYard's not running okay tonight. I'm scared if I screen share that we might crash the whole fucking screen. So my thing is, I might just do the whole show like this, where you can't see any visuals. I apologize, but I'd rather that than crash the whole fucking thing. Let's see. You're good, Mrs. C. Okay. Try restarting your computer. No, it really wasn't my computer. It was just the website. I refresh until it let me go live. It took almost 15 minutes. So sorry about that, guys. I really am. I'm good. Just wondering what all this means. StreamYard sucks. I've never had a problem with StreamYard till tonight. I really, really haven't. I mean, occasionally I'll have bad internet. Occasionally I have bad issues with this stuff, but like very rare. I haven't. Not many complaints. And with StreamYard, this is the very first time ever I had a technical difficulty with them. So not a bad run, considering it's been over 2 years probably using StreamYard. So that's cool. Would have been a bummer, Slasher Fred, but we are here to review 14 episodes of Tales from the Crypt season number 4, so I'm very excited. Yes, hell yeah, with some Daniel Bryan up in this son of a bitch. The 4th season, pretty dark. There were so many versions, very serious episodes, and it was also the season where it became a monster-type show. Interesting. I would say, off the bat, that I think season 4 might be the best season. I'm leaning towards yes. It's easily the most consistent season. It's easily the season with the most above average episodes. And now season 3 was a rare one where I didn't have one failure in season 3. Season 4 might have 2. We're going to have to talk out one of them. I know it has one failure, but it might have 2. It's close. The other one is teetering on a D and an F, but we'll talk it out together only on Grande's Graveyard. We got Villainous Vixen in the house. Yay, hi. Villainous Vixen was watching the same episode that I was watching, I think, Monday night. We were both watching What's Cooking. That's the episode I was just happy to be up to in my show prep. And she messaged me. She's like, I just watched What's Cooking. I was like, there's no way I did too. So VV, welcome, my friend. Hope all is well with you. I know you were looking forward to this one. Happy to have you in the house tonight. We got Salty P. What's good, everyone? What's going on? Salty P. Hope all is well with you. What's up? What's up, Ghostface Brett? I bet that it felt like back in the old days when your TV was on the fritz and all you got was snowy television. It was just, it kept giving me the same message. It was like, you can't go live. You can't go live. We experienced traffic. I took a screenshot of it, and I'll share it later, because I was like, I'm like, what the hell? Like, what? Like, never seen that in my life. People saying hi, awesome. I'm debating trying to do the screen share, but at the same time, I just think we're going to skip it tonight because I really am scared to break the stream. And I'm sure starting this late is going to hurt my viewership. So it is what it is. But that is neither here nor there. What is here and what is now is the Cemetery Man. And I am here to review Tales from the Crypt season number 4. So everybody, cheers to a safe, happy, healthy weekend. I'm drinking the greatest drink ever invented, Mountain Dew, code red. So cheers, everybody, to a good one. Oh, baby, we got 2 slugs and absolutely no regrets. We got 14 episodes here tonight. Her says, what's cooking was on my top 3 of my list. Okay, I know a lot of people consider that to be one of, if not the best Tales from the Crypt episodes ever. It's the highest rated Crypt ever. Do I feel that way? We will find out tonight here, only on The Graveyard. So, all right, let's dive into this. Let's dive into season 4, episode number 1, of course, which is entitled None But the Lonely Heart. A con artist meets and weds old wealthy widows through a dating service, then murders them and takes their inheritance. Finally, he gets the date of his dreams, the very worst of them. Yes, None But the Lonely Heart. Now, this one is, of course, a standout episode based on the fact that is directed by none other than Tom freaking Hanks. Yes, Tom Hanks directs this episode, and it is so cool to me that he directs this episode. It comes out in June of 1992. And then the following 2 years, 93 and 94, respectively, he wins Best Actor at the Academy Awards. And just half a year before winning those awards, those prestigious Best Actor awards, he's directing episodes of Tales from the Crypt and even showing up as a cameo in them. I mean, I thought that was really cool. And of course, the episode does really star Treat Williams, who I think is just fantastic in this episode as this kind of con artist swindler who's widowing these people, sort of a male black widow, if you will. And he's charming these women, telling them all they like to hear. He lies to them and tells them that he is impotent and that's why he can't have sex with them. So that's the thing to kind of lie them into. Oh, I can't fulfill any woman that way. I'm just here to warmth you and give you life in the moments of your death and all these things. Treat Williams is fantastic in this episode. He just plays such a great scumbag. And of course, after knocking off a woman at the beginning of the episode, he goes back to the VHS dating services, and he, of course, comes across Frances Sternhagen's character, who just a couple years before this was in Rob Reiner's Misery. She was the wife of the sheriff in that movie. Love Frances Sternhagen, just a great, great actress. Really cool to see her act in a crypt here. And he basically, kind of wins her over, sweeps her off her feet, and, slowly but surely, he's getting her to buy into that he loves her and he's, into her and all these things, when really he's just a swindler. He's just out there to try to steal your money and make himself even more rich. And he's got another guy, invested in this with him. Of course, one of the guys that works at the dating service firm is Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks has the small little cameo in this episode that he directs. Really cool to see Tom Hanks in there, and he even gets murdered. There's a murder scene with Tom Hanks. I just sort of love this episode. I thought this was such an interesting one because, number one, it was a refreshing thing to see a male Black Widow. Like, I feel like Black Widow stories are almost always through the eye of a woman, tricking these dumbass men. I like the whole idea of this good-looking, charming male Black Widow that is tricking these old women into thinking, hey, he loves me, he really, really cares about me, and then stealing their money by, poisoning their wine over and over again, which I don't know how he doesn't get caught. But another thing about this one too is Treat Williams is almost like a slasher villain in this. His body count, this has to be the highest body count of any episode up until this point, where Treat Williams is basically a slasher villain. He murders his partner. He murders Tom Hanks. He murders all the old women that he encounters. He murders the butler. He murders everyone. He murders even the guy at the graveyard played by Sugar Ray Leonard, which is a bizarre, like, why Sugar Ray Leonard, but why not at the same time? So bizarre to see Sugar Ray in here as a small cameo as like the grave digger. Really cool. I don't know. I really like this one. I thought Tom Hanks did a good job with the direction. I thought it was really well acted, especially by Treat Williams and Frances Sternhagen. They actually managed to have real chemistry in an episode where obviously it's just very faked, where, you know, I love you, I really love you, when he really doesn't. All he loves is the money that she can provide to him. I thought that the twist ending was kind of disturbing, where Treat Williams, he's getting ready to leave the country after murdering all of these women, Frances Sternhagen included. There's a really funny scene where he thinks he's drugged her with the red wine, and she kind of comes back to life, and he's like, my wife, she just had a terrible fall down the steps, and he pushes her down the steps. It's hysterical. He, of course, kind of confronts Sugar Ray in the graveyard in like this mausoleum. And Sugar Ray's like, how do you do it? I envy you. I really want to know, how you get these women to, embrace their lives right before their deaths. And he's like, you've been trying to blackmail me. I'll kill you for that. I'll kill you for wasting my time. Kind of gets him with the shovel. And then all of his widows, all of the women that he swindled out of all of their money and tricked into, thinking that he loved them, they kind of come back from the grave, and each woman gets more grisly with how recent the effect was. So, of course, Frances Sternhagen, she's like all mummified. Then you have the previous one and the one before that and that. I love the special makeup effects here. Of course, it's Kevin Yeager, who does go on to direct an episode here in season 4, which we'll get to far down the line. But if you notice, there's an eyeball scene. The eyeball pops out of one of the widows. You could tell it's Chucky's eye. If you look really, really closely, and if you're a nerd like me, you'll be able to tell that. Love the special effects here. Loved the storytelling. I thought the direction was really good from Tom Hanks. I really love this one. I think that you get off on such a good, positive foot here with season 4 of Tales from the Crypt. I would say None But the Lonely Heart is an S tier episode. Now, again, it feels weird not dragging it, but I'm so scared to tempt fate here. I don't know. Maybe we can. Maybe we should. Let's try it. We're going to try to tempt fate here. We're going to try to share the screen with what we usually do here. So here goes nothing. Bear with me, y'all. I don't know. Did we crash? I don't think we crashed. All right, we're good. So I can now use this. Let's scroll up here. None But the Lonely Heart is going to start things off very hot, very, very good with an S tier. And that's actually going to take the S tier down a notch. So there we go. There's the S tier. I'm going to drag this all the way over too. So this way, we're back to where we were. Okay, yeah. So we started a little late tonight because of StreamYard crashing, and hopefully we have no more blips along the way. We got Hersil, as I say this, the thing's freezing, whatever. Hersil says Tom Hanks. Yep, Tom Hanks directs and acts in this one. Really cool to see, especially right before the Academy Award wins and stuff like that. And I believe this might have been the same year as like A League of Their Own, which is just a great performance as well. Always been a big Tom Hanks fan. And cool to see that he has a good sense of humor, wanted to direct one of these and didn't just want to direct it. He actually wanted to act in it too. That's the thing I always felt with Arnold. I wish Arnold would have been in the episode somehow that he directed, but it's really cool to see Tom Hanks pop up as the small cameo. We got the Alpha in the house. Alpha Romero. Grande, what's up, everybody? This Saturday night, live at 10 p.m. on Alpha's channel, he and I will be doing a retrospective of George A. Romero's Darkest Day in Horror the World Has Ever Known, Day of the Dead. So I'm very much looking forward to working with him on that. Always love talking with Alpha, and Day of the Dead's one of my all-time favorite zombie movies and Romero movies and movies, period. So very excited to work with you, sir. Hope all is well. We got Slasher Fred. Comic cover kind of makes me feel like one of those 90s horror movies because it shows a skeleton bride being pushed down the steps. Yes, and I love that. I love some of the old comic book covers for some of these. The episode has former boxer Sugar Ray. Absolutely. No mas. Alpha, what up, brother? What's going on? We got James Abernathy in the house. Hey, everyone. What's going on, James? Hope all is well with you, all the way from the UK. In the prologue, you have the Crypt Keeper as the restaurant host. That's right. Well, I love this. This is a really memorable season. I'm most familiar with Treat Williams from Deep Rising, a silly but fun movie, fun actor. I'd agree. I think he's a fun actor, too. Actually, if there's anything I remember him in most, for some reason, it would be the Substitute sequels. Now, I know they're not the greatest movies in the world, but I really like him in those movies. And he's great in this. He's generally playing a guy that I like. He just plays the ultimate asshole in this, where you're like, oh, I hope this guy gets what he has coming to him. And man, the whole finale is just so satisfying, where all these women kind of get their comeuppance, they get their revenge on this scumbag who not only stole all their money. I think that's the lesser of the two evils here. Whereas not only did he steal their money, he broke their hearts, right? He conned them into thinking, I'm loved. There's something I still have to offer at my old brittle age. And I think that's the beauty and brilliance of this episode. Is it's the horrors of that. It's the horrors of feeling unloved and unwanted. And then, of course, Treat Williams makes them feel young again, youthful again, like they matter again. And then, of course, pulls the plug from under them literally, or pushes them down the steps, or feeds you poison wine. I don't know. I thought this was a really, really good one. I like this episode a lot. The Crypt Keeper's voice sounds pretty high. Okay. I forgot Tom Hanks was in this. Yeah, Tom Hanks wrote and directed this one. I'm sorry, directed and acted in this one. So it's very cool. Can someone put a link up for Alpha's channel? I posted on the community post. I said, like, oh, check this out. But yeah, no, by all means, Alpha's still here. By all means, share the link to your channel. You're more than welcome to. But that is the first episode of the season 4, episode 1. Really like None But the Lonely Heart. I think that's a really good one, a really good way to kick this off. Now, the next one is pretty hated amongst fans of the show, and I'd have to respectfully disagree. I didn't really hate this one at all. This was, of course, season 4, episode 2. This'll kill you. In a research lab, when two colleagues accidentally inject an experimental virus into their sleazy boss that will eventually kill him, he tries to get revenge on them, believing it was no accident. Yes, this'll kill you. Now, this one stars Dylan McDermott, of course, and also Sonia Braga, and, of course, Cleavon Little, who Cleavon Little, if people don't remember, Cleavon Little was in a little movie called Blazing Saddles. He's the star opposite Gene Wilder. Of course, I know they originally wanted to get Richard Pryor for that, but Richard Pryor was having really horrendous drug problems and alcohol problems. Just really sad. Richard Pryor was going through it at the time, and that's why they got Cleavon Little, because that's the big question. Why the hell was Richard Pryor not in Blazing Saddles? Instead, they got Cleavon Little. I love Cleavon Little. I think he's a really good talent, and I like to see him showing up in this episode. Sadly, it was just months before he would pass away. I think he had stomach cancer, or I forget exactly what the type of cancer he had, but he was terminally ill when they were filming this episode, and this was the last performance he ever gave. And it's really sad to kind of see this as a swan song for him, but really cool to see him nevertheless. And actually, it's morbid, quite morbid, where the episode opens. Dylan McDermott drags Cleavon Little's dead body into a police station and says, I did it. I'm turning myself in. You could shoot me right now. It doesn't matter. It won't make a difference. It starts off with such a hook. Like, whoa, like, how did we get here? We're in a police station. This man has been bludgeoned to death. We're fucking just turning ourselves in. And it's just like, wow. Like, I love the way this story starts. And then we flash back to a few days earlier, and we're introduced to these three scientists. Of course, Dylan McDermott's the lead. Sonia Braga is kind of his love interest who hates his ass, but does have occasional sex with him. And then Cleavon Little, who's like kind of the glue that holds them together. The three of them talking about this serum that's being tested on with lab rats and things like that. And of course, they're looking to make this big breakthrough with the serum. They're trying to change the world forever with it. And of course, because he's such a scumbag, because he's such an asshole, Dylan McDermott eventually does get tricked by the two of them. Instead of giving him his insulin, he thinks he's been given this, thing that's going to kill him because he's such a scumbag and stuff like that. And basically, the whole twist is it's a whole misunderstanding. They didn't actually give him the thing, but he thinks that they did, and he thinks they're conspiring against him, but they're really not. And that whole part of the episode, it's okay. It's kind of foreseeable, like especially the way it opens. You're like, I bet you he's not really sick, because that'll be the twist at the end. And spoilers, it sort of is. Where this one I do think is above average, though, is with the acting. I thought the acting was very intense. I loved how intense this thing opened. Like, it just was very raw and very intense. Like, I liked the acting between these three. It was very just really there. I liked the shouting matches they were having at one another, where this is a big breakthrough for me. And Dylan McDermott just being just absolute asshole, with no respect for anybody, especially women. Very misogynistic guy who kind of talks his way into bed with Sonia Braga. And after he goes, he's like, oh, I'll be back another time. And she's like, every time I let you into my bed, I remember why, I never wanted you back in here again. And there's that kind of interaction between the two of them. That stuff's interesting. That stuff works. It's not the biggest or grandest episode, but considering it, to be one of the worst, like a lot of people do, I don't see that. I really don't see that here. I think the acting alone is good enough here. And I think the storytelling, I think the direction is fine. I don't really have a lot of issues with this one. Now, it's not the most memorable crypt. It's not a crypt that genuinely feels like this show's formula, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I kind of think it's fine. I don't know. I never hated this one. I would come in at like a solid B minus, somewhere in there. So scrolling down here, I would say this one's like a B minus. I would say even for the acting alone, I think this one is fairly solid. So I would say This'll Kill Ya. It's a step down from Ease'll Kill Ya from the previous season, which was my favorite episode of season number 3 and one of arguably my favorite episodes of this show ever. This is a small step down from that, but I don't think this is the big, bad, terrible episode that a lot of people would make it out to be. I don't know. I never minded this one. I still don't think it's that bad. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but that is season 4, episode number 2, This'll Kill Ya. So I don't know. Very curious to hear if anybody has thoughts on that one. Let's see. And just as I say that, we got Slasher Fred chiming in on this one. This episode is mostly a flashback story because it's told from the guy who was just murdered Cleavon Little's character and tells the story. Exactly. Yeah. And I liked the whole setup. It hooked me immediately. Like, I think that was smart to start it that way, because if they had just started in the lab, I don't know how intense that dialogue would have came off, but it was like, okay, we're going to end up where he's bashing in Cleavon Little's head and literally turning himself in. How do we get there? And I think that kept me engaged. That kept me interested throughout this entire thing. And I don't know. I would say it's a little bit overhated. I don't really understand. Not to the hatred standpoint that a lot of people. I read a lot of reviews where people were just saying this is a terrible episode. I didn't really see that. We have Mateo here, Ciao Grande. Good old soccer tonight. What I miss, High Graviardians. Mateo ripping it off on the football field. Welcome, my friend. Hope all's well with you, man. People saying hi and ciao to Mateo. In the prologue, feels like one of those build-it-yourself shows like on Discovery Channel or TLC. Sure. James says, great performance can add so much weight to something that could be simply cheesy. I would agree with that wholeheartedly, and I just think that this worked. I don't know. I don't think cheesy at all with this particular episode, but yeah, you're right. Maybe the actors are the reason that was the case. I took this seriously. I thought this was a good story. I guess maybe its main gripe is it doesn't feel very much like a crypt. Like, this could have easily been an 80s Twilight Zone. I don't think anybody would have batted an eye. It's not distinctly crypt. And I've noticed with this show, if you're not distinctly crypt, a lot of the diehard crypt fans generally don't like the episode. Now, we have a few episodes on this season that don't genuinely feel like crypt, and it's interesting because it seems to be that they polarize with these episodes, but we'll get there. We will get there for sure. But the next episode coming up here is, of course, season 4, episode number 3. This one, of course, directed by the legendary and the late, he just passed away not terribly long ago, William Friedkin. This is On a Dead Man's Chest. We got a brief plot synopsis for you. Actually, I did have a brief plot synopsis for you. Okay. Arrogant and decadent singer Danny Darwin fronts the popular hard rock group Exorcist. Pun intended there. Danny fears that the guitarist Nick Bosch's marriage to the disapproving Scarlett will cause the band to break up. Groupie Vendetta sets Danny up with this mysterious tattoo artist named Ferrucci, an attempt to calm him down, but things go awry when Ferrucci's tattoo for Danny proves to be anything but comforting. Wow, this was a really unique episode. And I would dare to say one of the weirdest Tales from the Crypt episodes out there for me. I thought this one was quite weird. And I don't know if that's in a good way or a bad way. Like, I have a lot of mixed thoughts on this one. This one, I don't mind the setup. Okay, we got a rock group. We called it The Exorcist because why not? That's William Friedkin's biggest movie. That's the movie everyone remembers William Friedkin for. So I thought that was funny. That was cute to go meta here and a return to the horror genre. Fuck it, let's just call the small band we have in the episode Exorcist. I thought that was a nice wink, especially if you're a fan of that movie and you're a fan of this filmmaker. It was so cool to see him come back and nod to that. Not, oh, I wanted to be completely away from Exorcist. I don't want to acknowledge Exorcist. That's my past. This is my future. There's a lot of directors that that do that. They try to get away from their past successes and only embrace my future. But I thought that was a nice kind of wink at the audience to be like, I know what you're thinking when you see my name as the directed and it's a horror property. I get it. I liked that. I thought that was a nice self-aware touch from the director. Now, this one, I don't think the acting is as strong in the previous two episodes, or dare I say, a lot of the other episodes in season 4. It's not the weakest, but at the same time, the acting isn't as strong here as it is in other one. I see Hearst Hill says Tia Carrere from Wayne's World. That's right. And I believe you do see her naked in this. Like briefly, you see nipple shot. You see a lot of naked women in this for what it's worth. If you like naked women, I mean, this is definitely an episode that might intrigue you. But it's your age-old story. You know, two people in the band, they're not getting along because one doesn't like the other's girlfriend slash fiance to be. He's against it. One of the groupies who's with him is kind of like, hey, you know, we could do this to get rid of her. We could do that to get rid of her. And there's a lot of these, like, you know, contrasting things. One day after, you know, failing to perform, having sex with this groupie, she says, hey, why don't you go take a load off? Why don't you go down to this tattoo guy? And, you know, he can maybe change around your fortune. He's like, okay, whatever. He goes down there and basically this guy gives him this majestic tattoo of this giant serpent on his chest alongside the face of Tia Carrere character. And basically the two of them are on his chest and he has these fantasies of killing her. And then these fantasies may or may not come true. And it's a very interesting murder sequence. This one's really a weird trip. Like, okay, guy hates boyfriend's girl. Guy goes to a tattoo parlor. Guy, through the tattoo, is able to fantasize and murder this woman. And then, you know, just decides to, hey, I have to cut this tattoo off my body. And we get this great practical makeup effect of this guy cutting his own skin off, holding up the tattoo. Crazy. I mean, really out of left field. Weird. One of the more weird episodes. Now, I know there are people that feel very different about this. Some love it, some hate it, some don't know what to think. I'm kind of there. I don't know what to think of this one. I don't think it's one of the best crypts. I don't think it's one of the worst crypts. I just think it's kind of an odd one. Like, okay, the direction is there. The acting is so-so. The story, I would say, is a little bit below par. I don't really think it's a great story. I mean, it's a, you know, classic age-old setup of like the whole, you know, we don't like your girlfriend thing, but like the whole bringing the tattoo into it and like, I don't know, maybe just maybe they were trying to like say something a little bit extra where it's like, you know, the way you feel on the inside, you know, sometimes reflects itself ugly on the outside. And in this case, in the form of a tattoo on your chest with a serpent. And, you know, this woman, you being the serpent, the woman, of course, symbolizing the girl. I mean, maybe it's trying to say something deeper here, but it doesn't really work in that way. I don't know. It's just a middle of the road one for me. It's nothing great. It's nothing terrible. It's nothing to run home about. Obviously, if you like William Friedkin, I think it's worth a watch just on that alone. Because, I mean, I know there's a lot of people that are like diehard Friedkin fans that watch anything he's directed. And if that's the case, this is definitely an episode you have to watch. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I've seen people love it. I've seen people hate it. I'm right in the middle. I'm going to say it's like a C. I think that's fair. I think this one is like a C. I don't think it's anything, maybe a C plus for some of the good effects, but for me, this is going to be a C. And it's crazy. I mean, look at this. We only have 8 episodes that are less than a B in the entire series up to this point. We're on like the beginning of season 4. Like, that's wild. That is absolutely wild that this show is that good of quality that you really don't have too many bad ones. It's pretty wild. Slasher Fred says in Crypt Keeper segment, you have the Crypt Keeper dressed as Elvis, and in the end, you have him dressed like the Beatles from there. Yes, of course. And maybe it was a whole callback to like Yoko Ono and John Lennon, because obviously the Beatles did not really care. The other Beatles didn't really care for her. So maybe there was, you know, some kind of a commentary there. I don't know, but definitely funny to see the Crypt Keeper just up as the king in the beginning. I always love that too. The end, the Crypt Keeper was priceless. Of course. Yeah, no, the John Cassier's The Crypt Keeper is just money. And I think it's a big reason why the show is remembered all these years later, is because the Crypt Keeper was just one of the best horror hosts of all time. I mean, there's really no debating that. In this episode, the scene where the tattoo comes to life and bursts out of his stomach is a reference to Alien, of course. Walter Hill, who also wrote Alien, also worked on the series. Sure, absolutely. Tia Carrere was great in the series. Relic Hunter. Yeah, she's really pretty in this. I like her performance. I think she's probably the best actor in this thing, as there's points where, you know, the other guy's calling her all these names, and she's like, you can't let him talk to me like that. Like, what are you doing? And I liked her kind of standing up for herself when her boyfriend would not. I thought that was interesting stuff. I remember that series, Mateo. Orange True Lies. That's right. That's right. Grande, are you going to get a big? No, definitely not going to get a big serpent tattoo. No, but maybe one of Camila Mendes, because I know you, I know you share my affinity for Camila Mendes because she's a beautiful lady. This series also had Sherry Rose, who was in Demon Knight, and she also played the supervillain Aftershock on the superhero series Black Scorpion. Very cool. I didn't know any of that. So yeah, that is of course On a Dead Man's Chest, which is season 4, episode 3, on to season 4, episode number 4. Yes, this is, of course, starring, I think, one of the more underrated ladies in the world, in Kathy Moriarty in her prime. She's a beautiful lady. Her daughter's beautiful, Erin Moriarty. This is season 4, episode 4. This is Seance. 2 con artists attempt to steal the fortune of a rich man they accidentally killed by creating a fake seance for his blind wife. But not everything goes as planned. Yes, Seance. This is a really interesting episode. Right off the bat, Kathy Moriarty, I gotta say, is just a really underrated talent. Like, I remember, like, when I first saw her in Raging Bull, I was like, okay, they probably casted her for eye candy. And then, she'd go into movies like Neighbors. She'd be going to, like, bit roles here and there. But I really think Kathy Moriarty, I underrated her talent. And then over the years of seeing her again and again and other stuff, she's impressive. I think she's actually a really impressive actress. I think she's really good. And I like her work, especially in this episode. She gives a great performance. Of course, the man she's trying to win over in Con is John Vernon, who was, of course, the principal in Animal House. He's Dean Wormer in Animal House. I thought that was so kind of cool to see. Wow, Dean Wormer, holy shit. This episode's on double secret probation. Love that. And basically, her and her other guy, they're trying to con him out of his money and trick his wife into thinking that he cheated on her. That's basically the whole story. Now, the story is not anything creative, anything innovative, anything really all that new. But where I really liked this one, where I really felt this one stood out, was the technical. I loved the technical in this episode where it's shot and taking place like it's in the 20s. It's very neo-noir looking. You have that Morticia Addams, like Barry Sonnenfeld, Addams Family movies, that light that goes over her eyes, but just her eyes. It's almost like a window on just her eyes. I loved that. I loved how it was shot. I loved the technical. I loved some of the camera angles and some of the background music that felt very noir, like 20s to 50s cinema, neo-noir. And like here, you completely, what if a Crypt episode was like a neo-noir? Bam, you get it here with this episode. And that's from the technical standpoint, I was quite blown away with this. I thought it was really, really well done. Of course, it's directed by Gary Fledler. I don't know how to say that name. That name is a tongue twister for me. Gary Fledder, maybe that's it. I don't know. But he does a good job in the director's chair. He gives this episode an absolute distinct feel of that old school 1920s neo-noir type of thing. And of course, while they're trying to con this man, you do find out that they're like long lost cousins, and they do throw a joke in about that. And you're like, hey, you go a long way to fuck your cousin. I thought that was pretty funny. Basically, they do seduce him. She does seduce him, and they take all the pictures of it. And they're like, oh, we'd hate to show these to your wife. And Dean Wormer's like, oh, you go ahead. She'll never see these, and kind of just walks off with his big briefcase of money. He kind of walks off and goes on the elevator. And before he can get on the elevator, for some reason, the elevator's not there. And this guy just falls all the way down to his death. It's crazy. And then to double tap him, the elevator comes down and crushes his ass. Whoa, like one of the more surprising kills of the series, where I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, never expected that in a million years. And now Kathy Moriarty and her partner, yeah, we got him now. Now we just got to trick the wife and do a seance type of thing that, he would want to have us have the money type of deal. And basically what happens, the big twist, which I burst out laughing when I first saw this, the big twist is when they meet the wife, she's blind. The wife can't see. She's actually blind. So when he was saying, my wife will never see these, he was being honest. She's blind. She can't see shit. So they could tell, yeah, this is a picture of your husband, fucking Kathy Moriarty. Oh, yeah, well, I'm blind. I would never be able to know. I thought that was great. I was like, oh, my God, what a clever, way to write out of that. And then, of course, it all culminates in this big seance at the end where, Dean Wormer kind of comes back and gets his vengeance, and they get their comeuppance. I loved this one. I thought this one was so brilliant, because you're taking a very cliched blackmail story that we have seen time and time again. How many times have we seen a fucking man, blackmailed by a beautiful blonde with big yits over money? How many times can we see this? How many fucking times? But they put every sort of original spin on it to sort of give it its own identity into something I've never seen before. That's the beauty of Tales from the Crypt. You take something that is so overdone, so worn out, and so played, and you kind of spun it this entire 360 to, oh, well, what if we made it a neo-noir? What if we made it where the guy accidentally dies, but he's not killed by these con artists? He just accidentally falls down a fucking elevator shaft. What if we had this big old seance at the end, and because of we were doing this seance because his wife is blind? Like, I loved this. I think this is creativity at its best, because again, you're taking something that's played out and you're making it original, and I liked that. And again, adding the technical element on that, like if this had just been all those creative ideas and not the neo-noir shot, I don't know if this episode has that same identity. I think if you don't have the technical, it falls down to like a B+. But with the technical, I think this is an S. I really, really love this one. I think this is a classic Tales from the Crypt. I think it's really an underrated one. It doesn't get the highest of reviews, but man, I enjoyed this from start to finish. It is written by Harry Anderson. Again, I know I said that at the beginning, but it's funny enough, he acted in, of course, Stephen King's It, most people remember him from, but he also acted in Corman's Calamity. He's in that one. So it's cool to see someone who acted in one of these come back and write this one. And I thought he did a really good job in the writer's chair. I really liked this. I would say that this one is going to come in at a strong S. I thought this was a really big surprise in a really big way. And I don't know, I really was appreciative of this one. So Seance is going to go right up there in the S category. Really, really liked this one. But let's go back to comments. Let's see what y'all have to say. Here for the Relic Hunter chat. Pat is in the house. He had to cancel his show tonight. I don't know why, but Pat, always good to see you in the house, my friend. Hope all is well with you. You and I get magic tattoo of the 3 girls from that show. You get Madeline Petch on your chest with a fucking scorpion. I'll get Camila Mendez with a fucking what? Yeah, I guess we'll do the serpent, we'll do a snake, and then, I don't know, someone else can get the other lady. But yeah, that would be hysterical. The Crypt Keeper segment feels like a film noir. You have the Crypt Keeper playing Sam Spade character, which I thought was great too. Like, even the Crypt Keeper's in on the whole neo-noir thing. I don't know, I thought this was brilliant. Like, I will be perfectly honest. Neo-noir, for me, can be very hit or miss. There's some neo-noir stuff I love and get really into, and there's some neo-noir stuff where I'm like, check on my watch. That it's one or the other for me. This I thought was neo-noir done perfectly, because again, we're in early 1990 when it was being made, and it feels like they took me back in time to the 20s, but with the technical of like a Barry Sonnenfeld lit Addams Family movie, and then at the same time with all these creative story, going down different paths of this story. I loved that. I thought this was such a creative episode. I really, really did. I dug this one. People saying hi to one another. He was Mr. Big and I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. Oh, that's right. John Vernon's daughter, Kate, appeared in the final episode of season 5, Till Death Do We Part. Well, we'll be getting there the next time we cover Tales from the Crypts. That should be cool. Kathy Moriarty and Kathleen Turner could be twins. Kathy Moriarty's great. I really like Kathy Moriarty. Like, I am totally a big fan. Dean Warmer from Animal. It is him. It's Dean Warmer, man. And my wife will never see these. I love that. I was like, oh my God, she won't see because it's fucking, she's blind. John Vernon is a classic bad guy. He's great. He's such a good actor. I saw him, I think it was a French film. It was a French film like right before or after Animal House, in black and white. I forget the name of the film, but he was fantastic in it. And it was funny. Like, I was watching people and they're like, oh, making fun of him. I'm like, dude, his performance is really good. Like, you gotta, open your eyes to see what he is in this movie. But some people, I guess, can't see him as anything other than Dean Wormer. At the same time this episode aired was the same time that Batman the Animated Series premiered. And of course, John Vernon provided the voice of the crime boss, Rupert Thorne. Yes, that's right. 1992. That is absolutely right. Damn, only 2 episodes in the F tier. LOL. There's going to be one from season 4 that'll go in the F tier, my friend. Don't you worry, because it is a horrible one. I think the term neo-noir means boring giallos. Yeah, I mean, sure. It's some cases, absolutely. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. There are neo-noir I just go gaga for. And hell, even next week, like there's a Stanley Kubrick film that's a neo-noir that I love. We'll talk about that next week. But like, I don't know. Neo-noir could be so hit or miss. Like there's some people that they'll watch every neo-noir. They don't care. They love it. It's just the style that they love. I'm more picky with it where it's more 50-50. It's definitely a coin flip with me whether I'm going to be into a neo-noir or not. But I do appreciate the style and I do appreciate the creativity this episode brings. So that's why it's an S. But let's move on to the next episode where another one, I thought this was criminally underrated. There's a few of these where I don't understand why these are not like all-time classics, at least considered to be that. And this one I wish was. This is season 4, episode number 5, directed by Stephen Hopkins, who I know I'm iffy on, but I think he did a good job here. And I think he even did a better job here than he did in Abracadabra, which is a more beloved and talked about episode. Fuck that. I think this one's better. This is season 4, episode 5. This is Beauty Rest. Lies. Life's not been easy for actress Helen. She's getting older and her dreams of hitting the big time are disappearing day by day. When she gets the chance to take part in a beauty contest, she's determined to do anything to win. Yes, Beauty Rest. Now, this one stars Mimi Rogers, who I always really liked as an actress as well. It also has Kathy Ireland, who was a real-life model, and the voluptuous Jessica Rubin, who is sexy and bad. Of course, Taryn from Dream Warriors. People remember her from that. Of course, she was also in Bad Dreams. She was the lead in Bad Dreams. Always loved Jennifer Rubin. She's in The Crush. Just a huge fan of her. I think it was just her birthday a couple days ago. So happy belated to Jennifer Rubin. Crazy that she's in her 60s now. Still looks good. Love Jennifer Rubin. Just think she's a great talent. She's also in this one. And basically, Mimi Rogers is playing this lady who's, again, kind of in a similar way to like we were mentioning with the, Numb with a Lonely Heart. She's this woman who's aging. She's actress / model who cannot continue to get jobs. She's getting less and less work. She's getting more and more frustrated. She's eating more and more food. She has had it up to here. And again, we're playing on the themes of the horrors of feeling undesirable. And I don't think that's something that, unlike let's con this guy out of his money or bring in a hot blonde. That's been done a million times. I like the whole story of the horrors of feeling undesirable and where we can go with it. And I think this was a really good directed episode by Stephen Hopkins and where this thing, sort of starts to where it ends here, where, of course, Mimi Rogers is upset. Her beautiful roommate, played by Kathy Ireland, is getting these parts over her. She accuses her, you spread your legs for him, didn't you? You fucked some greasy pig on an old couch, didn't you? And just kind of getting in her face, she's like, I didn't do that. Like, don't you accuse me of doing that. I didn't do any of these things. Just because I'm more young and desirable and all these things doesn't mean I fucked anybody to get the job. But that's where I think Mimi Rogers' mind goes here. It'll go into all these dark places. Because I didn't get this job, it must be, corruption. It must be casting couch. It must be, yay or nay. It must be one of these things. It couldn't just possibly be that I'm older, that I'm more undesirable, and I'm not unfreaking deniable at this point. And that's really where she feels. And I think there's a good sense of horror in that. And thus, when feeling those ways and feeling that darkness, when kind of stepping over into that part of yourself, you lose yourself. And Mimi Rogers in this episode starts to kind of lose her mind. She poisons the tea of her roommate, played by Kathy Ireland, trying to just knock her out for a few hours, ends up killing her. Jennifer Rubin and her at this beauty contest that she's entered. And of course, Jennifer Rubin overhears that she's going to win and she's done these things to win. And Jennifer Rubin's like, you're a sick fuck. I don't like what you've done to do this. It's not fair. It's not earned. It's not honest. Of course, she murders Jennifer Rubin. There's a really interesting kind of dark side look at a woman that wants to be desired and will do anything to do that. She will murder you. She will step on you. It is literally the modeling world will chew you up and spit you out. These are things that were played on in movies like Neon Demon. I like that whole psychology. This is a dog eat dog business. We will literally eat you up and spit you out. And that's what she does. She starts stepping on all these people to try to, win this beauty pageant. And then we get the ultimate Tales from the Crypt twist where you don't want to be the winner of this beauty pageant because the winner is Miss Autopsy 92. And the whole thing ends where she is completely opened up and you see her entire innards on the stage of this beauty pageant as all these people kind of applaud. Yes, you got your fame, you got your fortune, you got your beauty pageant win, but at what cost? Not just at the cost of other people's lives, not just at the cost of your own dignity, but at the cost of your innocence, at the cost of your fucking mind. And that's the most important thing. That's where horror drives home here. And I loved that. I thought it was brilliant. I really did. I really, really liked this one. The only thing that keeps it from getting an S for me is a couple of pacing issues here and there. And other than those three actresses I mentioned, some of the performances around them aren't the greatest. That's the only thing that keeps this that's the only thing that keeps this from being an S tier. But it's a very strong A, and I could be persuaded. But for me, Beauty Rest, I think it's a slam dunk A, and I would dare to say it's one of the more underrated episodes that the show ever did. I do not know why it doesn't have a huge high rating and more people talking about it and loving it, because I think it's damn worth a good conversation as Beauty Rest sneaks into the A tier here. So very cool. Let's go back to comments. Let's see. I just bought my mom the best gift for Mother's Day, Ball Busters. Hell yeah. Jennifer Rubin, of course, gotta love Homegirl from Friday 13th, from Elm Street 3 and Dream. Bad Dreams. Mimi Rogers was great in Catcher. She's really good in this. Like, I think she's really one of the more underrated performances in the entire show. Like, I really like her kind of slow descent. Like, there's a great scene where after she thinks she got the part, like this guy puts her over. You were great. You were perfect. I can't wait to call you and tell you got it. This guy really buttering her up. She gets home. She's ready to rub it in her younger, more prettier roommate's face. I got a job. I'm just waiting on the call. She goes, oh, that one? And then they call her and tell her she didn't get it. And her quick from being, a night that was this big for her and just making it so dirty and bitter. And she just goes into the fridge and starts gorging herself with pizza and ice cream and all these things, because who needs to put in all this effort to look beautiful and gorgeous when some young floozy in her mind is going to just take her spot? There's horror in that. And I liked the story that this told. I liked the horror it was trying to convey and show to the viewer. I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. In the episode, you have the Crypt Keeper doing push-ups. That's right. This episode kind of feels like a female version of Top Billing, especially with the twist. Yes, I like this a lot more than Top Billing, though. I don't know. And I know Top Billing is definitely more famous. More people like it. Good on you. I don't know. For some reason, I like this one way more. Maybe because this one I felt took itself a little bit more seriously. But at the same time, you have great acting. I would say you have better side cast in Top Billing. Like, you have fucking John Astin. You have Louise Fletcher. You have some really good talent in those in that other episode around the leads. Where here, I just think Mimi Rogers, it's her episode, and she really steals it. She does a good job. So I really like this one. In my opinion, one of the more underrated ones of this season and of the entire show. Which brings me to one that is the highest rated in this entire show's history, which is absolutely wild. It's in the top half of season 4, just right cram in the middle here. And I guess I have sort of a controversial. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how controversial this will be. Please don't hate me, but we'll talk about it right here. This is season 4, episode number 6. This is What's Cooking. Yes, What's Cooking. Married couple Fred and Irma's restaurant has seen better days, but things change once a stranger walks in with a rather unique recipe for steak. Sorry, I had a cough there. Of course, this one stars the late, great Christopher Reeve, who I always loved. That has Bess Armstrong, who I always remember from Jaws 3, of all things. Art LaFleur, who played the babe in The Sandlot. Meatloaf, of course, from Rocky Horror Picture Show and Pelts and all these wonderful independent films. And, of course, Judd Nelson himself. Judd Nelson from The Breakfast Club. Don't you forget about me. I mean, amazing cast. And it is an amazing cast. And I understand partially, why it's so beloved. But with that being said, I don't know if I consider it in that higher echelon of the best Tales from the Crypt episodes like most people. I like it. It's good. I just don't know if I see it as being a top 5, top 10 episode. I just don't. I don't know if I just don't put it on that pedestal. I'm not sure why, a lot of people do. I get it. It's probably because of its memorability And of course, it's always cool to see Christopher Reeve. I love him. And this was, I think, just a year and a half or 2 years before the whole accident with getting paralyzed and the horse accident and stuff like that. So that's too bad. This was one of his last performances that he wasn't bound to a wheelchair. So it is nice to see him here as this guy who's struggling. He's trying to open this kind of squid restaurant. We're going to sell him squid on a stick, honey. And I will say this is got to be one of the only Tales from the Crypt episodes ever, and one of the only Tales from the Crypt couples ever that is actually a happily married couple, that they don't want to fucking kill each other, that they're not they're not cheating, there's no affair going on. This couple actually loved each other, and there's nice chemistry between Christopher Reeve and Bess Armstrong. She has put in all of her money and faith and stuff into not just his passion and vision of a squid restaurant, which, let's face it, is not going to draw, even though I really like squid. I'm a big fan of eating squid. I debated getting it for lunch today just in honor of this episode, but she does it because she loves him. And I think that chemistry there, that bond was really nice between them. And there was no turn. There was no, I'm secretly in it for the money and killing my husband. I love that it didn't go there, because a lot of Crypt episodes do. And I was like, oh my God, thankfully, finally a couple that actually love each other. Just weird, but I did appreciate that aspect of it. Of course, they're going under. Meatloaf plays the guy that is their landlord, and he comes in. I'm going to evict you guys. I didn't get my money yesterday. He knows today's today. You know how I know today's today? Because it's not fucking yesterday. He goes on this whole rant of how he didn't get his fucking money yesterday. I love that whole Meatloaf rant. That's his only scene in the whole episode. It was funny. And of course, Christopher Reeve just goes, "You fat fucking pig!" And Christopher Reeve runs at him and cuts him a little bit. And then he's like, "I'm sorry. I lost my mind. I lost my cool. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do what I did." And Meatloaf is like, "You come anywhere near me, I'll call the cops on your ass. You're out of here tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow to take this restaurant and you and your pathetic wife with it." And Meatloaf kind of storms off. And then, of course, the next day, Christopher Reeve goes in, willing to concede defeat. All right, we're going to lose this restaurant. We're going to lose my dream. We're going to be out on the streets begging for spare change. And then all of a sudden he goes in and the place is jumping. The place has these famous steaks that Judd Nelson's in the back cooking up for people, steak and eggs for Art LaFleur, the sheriff, and all these people. It becomes an overnight success, almost like Good Burger when Ed comes out with the sauce. Oh my God, now the squid restaurant has become this big, monstrous steakhouse that cannot be stopped. And of course, the Tales from the Crypt twist on it is the meat that they're being served is humans, and it's Meatloaf in the back, and they're cutting up parts of his body and just throwing it on the grill and serving it as steak, and it's the most popular steak in town. Fun, creative setup, classic Tales from the Crypt. Maybe that's why it is so beloved, because it is so embracing and, I guess, passionately embracing the fact that it is Tales from the Crypt. I think that may be why this episode is considered the best of the entire series, is because I don't know if there's any other episode that is more embracing the fact that it is a Tales from the Crypt than this one. It's just so, for it. And so we're not hiding this at all. This is Tales from the Crypt, balls out. There's no holds barred. That's maybe why this episode has the big cult following and the big praise and all the positive, perfect reviews. I could see that. And I think it's entertaining. Like I said, I like Christopher Reeve a lot. Personally, now this is just a personal thing. People are going to hate me for saying this, but I feel this way. I know you got Margot Kidder that does the episode later in the season, which was not worthy of Margot Kidder, let's be honest. Whether you like or dislike that episode, there's no doubt that Margot Kidder didn't belong in that episode. They needed somebody else. I would have much rather to see a fucking Superman reunion here. You get fucking Christopher Reeve. You get fucking, Jesus Christ, what the hell's her damn name? Fucking Margot Kidder. And then, of course, Richard Donner, who directs fucking the episode a couple episodes away, Showdown. He came back for the season to direct that. Although, granted, there's some Two-Fisted Tales, frequencies in that. But imagine you got Donner, you got Kidder, and you got Reeve all back for this episode. That would have been so cool, like a Superman reunion, and it ends up being the highest rated episode of the series. Now, granted, you change certain things, who knows? If you change director, you change the love interest, who knows? Maybe it wouldn't have hit as well, and maybe it would be not as remembered. I don't know. But again, that's just kind of a fantasy thing for me. I was like, oh man, would have been a cool time would have been for a Superman reunion, especially right before Christopher Reeve had his fatal fall. I mean, that's really, it would have been cool to see for me. And of course, I do see Slasher Fred, but Judd Nelson's great in the episode as this kind of guy that's, sort of blackmailing him. He's sort of trying to trick Bess Armstrong into falling for him. And like he kind of gets screwed over at the end of the episode where they turn on him because he's just up to no good, really. And then, of course, they turn on him and the episode kind of pans out. I liked that. I think this episode, while it's good, it's not great. It's not the best Tales from the Crypt ever. I think it's slightly overrated. Now, I still think it's good. I still think it's a solid B+. But I just don't see that whole like, best episode of the series. Like, I don't even think it's top 5 of this season. I really don't. Like, I know people are going to hate me for that, but I do really like it. I do really like it with that being said. So for me, a strong B+ for this one. I know people are going to hate me, turn this off and say I don't know anything. I just think it's a B+. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's the greatest. I think it's solid. I think it's solid overall. And I think if you put it on that pedestal, it is because it is just the one that embraces being Tales from the Crypt the most. And I understand why that would propel it for you. I do. I don't mind it, though. Definitely a solid episode. But let's see what you guys have to say in the chat. What's cooking? Yeah, what's cooking, buddy? What do you smell what The Rock is cooking? Absolutely, man. Grande, you wanted to eat Squidward before the show today. I love squid. I'm a huge squid fan. I have a crazy, I like a lot of different food. I actually have a crazy palate for like trying different food and stuff. Chef Boy Grande Squid Supreme only on the Graveyard. I have cooked squid, octopus, all of that before. I absolutely love it. I am a weird cat when it comes to like different foods. I'm always open to trying stuff. If you smell what the Graveyard's cooking, hell yeah. I find this confusing. Is it steak or is it meatloaf? Well, I guess it's meatloaf until they run out. And then, of course, he's just killing random people on the street and, serving their, I guess anyone's body fat tastes good as a steak. It looks exactly like a cow steak you'd buy at the fucking supermarket. I don't know. I guess it's just one of those. I think maybe it's a little too silly for me. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's the small disconnect. But it's still solid. Steak, you gotta love steak. You have Judd Nelson, and Judd Nelson's good in it. Judd Nelson's really fun in it. So I don't know. I like this one. I just guess I never put it up there with the all-time greats. Maybe unpopular, I know, but I'm honest and I always think for myself. So it is what it is. We got Cinephile Sanity TV coming in the chat. Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome, Sean. Hope all's well with you. As we just wrapped up What's Cooking, we move on. Well, I should have just asked Sean, what's cooking? What's cooking, Sean? We move on into season 4, episode 7, which I actually think is a step up from this. The New Arrival. An abnormally difficult child tests a child psychologist. Yes, The New Arrival. Directed by Peter Medak, who, of course, diehard horror fans will remember from a little movie called The Changeling with George C. Scott. You'll also remember a lesser effort he did called, Species 2. I think he did Species 2, which is a piece of shit. And he also did The Washingtonians, which is one of the worst Masters of Horror episodes that there ever was. So Peter is definitely, he started really good with the, the Changeling, but then when he gets here, you could be up in the air because 6 years down the road, he's directing Species 2. But this is a lot better than Species 2. I'll tell you that right here and now. Of course, it does star David Warner as the child psychologist. Of course, David Warner from The Omen. Everyone remembers him from Omen. Of course, it does have Zelda Rubinstein in it from Poltergeist and, the Rise of Leslie Vernon going to pieces. Really cool to see her. And she's a lot of fun in the episode. Also, a small cameo from Robert Patrick, the T-1000 himself. I really liked this one. I thought this was a really unique concept where we have this talk show psychologist radio host who is slowly but surely losing popularity. His show isn't threatened to go off the air. Robert Patrick is this kind of flamboyant up and coming, radio talent who's going to take his spot. He even tells him, you better do something quick to save your little show. Otherwise I'm going to take it, and David Warner has these frequent people that call in and stuff like that. And basically what happens is Zelda Rubinstein calls him and says, hey, my daughter, she has so many problems. Would you ever consider making a house call? And David Warner, to try to boost the ratings to save his show, yeah, we'll make a house call. Why not? So he takes his agent and his assistant there to kind of go to this house. And basically, you get to the house. Zelda Rubinstein is the owner. The one lady gets zapped by the doorbell, and we are just off to the races with these people kind of getting terrified, tortured, and all this tension-filled episode with this little kid who's not all there, who needs a psychologist in the worst way. I really love this one. I thought this was a lot of fun. David Warner's a great lead. I really enjoy him in the episode. He starts to kind of suggest all of these things. Maybe Zelda Rubinstein believes she's the child, and maybe she's dressing up as a kid, because obviously Zelda Rubinstein, she's a tiny little lady with that, childlike voice, even though she's a, of age woman. Loved that. I loved that he has that theory, even though that's not where the episode goes. Medeic does do a really good job on the director's chair. Now, of course, this is a guy that directed one of the, I would say from a horror genre fan standpoint, one of the best haunted house movies ever. It's not one of the most popular haunted house movies ever. There are haunted house movies that, Joe Blows would never have heard of The Changeling. But then again, of us in the community, of us that watch horror and love horror, The Changeling is a classic. The Changeling is a great, great haunted house movie, no matter what way you want to cut it. And it was cool to see him come back here and direct sequences of horror. I liked seeing that again, because it's not to be seen in Species 2. It is not to be seen in The Washingtonians, but it is to be seen here. And I liked what he did in the director's chair here. I was actually quite impressed. There's an interesting scene where the three of them kind of go into what they think is the girl's room, and there's all this purple gum on the walls, and that's what Zelda Rubinstein uses to try to kind of bribe the kid. Oh, she's being bad. I give her favorite gum, and she stops being bad. They kind of walk in. There's this interesting shot where one of the Asian girl, she gets this gum on her shoe. Oh, this is my Italian shoes. She's going off on this little rant, and we see, her kind of cleaning her shoe off, and then the little girl runs past her. She kind of turns around, and then that sequence kind of slowly but surely crescendos in the attic. Really liked that. And we don't see a lot. We don't see a lot of gore or dismembership or stuff, but the camera almost feels like it is in the point of view of this little girl as it attacks her. Loved that. I really loved that. I thought that was so well directed by Peter here. I loved how that whole sequence of horror was directed. You have Warner in the room, and he's trying to come up with all these ideas as to what's wrong with this kid, until he finally realizes, we got to get the fuck out of here, when they find the agent dead. We got to get out of here. They're trying to get out of here. At one point, the ceiling fan kind of lowers down and decapitates the other woman. Crazy. Until David Warner kind of finds himself tied up in this chair in the attic. And Zelda Rubinstein comes in and explains how all these other psychologists have tried to, save her daughter, but to no avail. And you have all these corpses of psychiatrists in the attic. I thought that was great. One of them is Dr. Kazir, which I thought was hysterical, because that's, of course, the last name of the guy who plays the Crypt Keeper, John Kazir. It's like, oh, there's Dr. Kazir. I'm like, oh, that's a fucking great meta moment. Like, very cool. I thought that, I was like, okay, I get your wink and nod here. Very funny. And then, of course, the only thing that keeps this from being an S, again, the only thing is the small twist where, okay, we learn that she's not really the child. Zelda Rubinstein's not dressing up as the child with the mask. It's like almost like an Alice, Sweet Alice mask. It's like this, instead of translucent, it's just white, but the rest of the mask is very similar to this. We do realize it is an actual little girl, and David Warner tries to strangle her until they kind of tie him back up, and she's like, you know what? I know what happened with my daughter, and unfortunately, none of these psychiatrists over the years, they've never been able to really help her. I spoiled her to death. And she gives this whole kind of monologue on how she spoiled her daughter to death, and basically her daughter's been an undead zombie for 40 years. That one part of it kills it for being an S for me. It's just, it could have maybe been explained better. It could have maybe been a different twist. Maybe you should have just had it with like, yeah, this is just a crazy demented child, and all of these stupid psychological thoughts that you had, it was the simplest answer the whole time. I think that would have been smarter, because you work us A all the way through Y, and the answer was 1, like if you were every letter of the alphabet and the answer was a number, like something like that, I think would have been a little bit more smart to end this episode, to pay off this episode. And that's just my opinion, though. And the only way to fight bad behavior is with worse behavior. I liked that line. I don't know. I like this one. I think it's an A. I really do. I think it's just under an S. It really, that very twist ending, I'm like, like it hurt it a little bit. If for some reason that one also was not on here. So that episode I can't drag up, but it would be right here in the A slot for me. I dug this one for sure. Let's go here. In the Crypt Keeper segment, he is playing a mental patient being interviewed. That's right. Yeah. And he's the straight jacket, which is fun. Robert Patrick. Yeah, that's right. He's only in it for about a minute. But it is a very memorable minute because it opens up on him. He's like, hey, it's Robert Patrick. I'm on the fucking radio. And then David Warner walks past him like, you son of a bitch. He's like, I'm going to take your fucking show. It's a nice kind of energetic setup. It's a good hook from Robert Patrick. It was fun to see him here. The twist at the end where it's revealed that the daughter died long ago and she is revealed to be a corpse makes me think of Psycho. The very ending just never worked for me. I don't like the end, like the very ending. Like all the lead up, all the technical, the direction, like all that stuff works. The acting is good. Zelda Rubinstein is so much fun in this fucking role. Just like, oh dear, I'm always tinkering with things. I'm the master at tinkering with things. Nobody can imitate Zelda Rubinstein. You either are or you aren't Zelda Rubinstein. And it was so cool to see her here. I love David Warner, just one of the great English actors of all time. I don't know. I really like this one, man. The episode also has Joan Reverence, who was in the 1995 TV movie Black Scorpion, which was produced by now late Roger Corman, which rest in peace, Roger Corman. That's right. It's crazy. It feels like just a couple episodes ago to what it was. The Alien knockoff show. I talked about 2 Corman movies, and now he's gone, man. 98 years old, though. That's a good life. So R.I.P. We'll hold one up for Roger Corman. Rest in peace, Roger Corman. Cheers to one of the all-time greats. Yeah, we'll miss Roger Corman dearly because they don't make movie producers like that anymore. The Washingtonians was garbage. Yeah, the Washingtonians was one of the, I would say that's arguably a top 3 or top 5 worst Masters of Horror, which I would be open to doing those down the road. If people want to see Masters of Horror, I did it. I think one of the first episodes ever of Grande's Career, when I had like nobody watching, I did do Masters of Horror like top 10. But I would love to do it like this style, review all the episodes. And that would be quick. It would be 26 episodes. So I could do that in probably 2 graveyards, and then we could get through that series. So that would be something, if people are interested down the road, totally let me know for sure. I would be open to doing that. But that, of course, is that one. Coming up next to me is the biggest disappointment of the season. Probably. I don't think there's a more disappointing one than this. There's worse, but not more disappointing. This is season 4, episode number 8. This is Showdown. No ELO, just Showdown. And the brief is a brief plot synopsis. A gunfighter confronts his past. That's it. That's the plot synopsis. Directed by fucking Richard Donner. Written by fucking Frank Darabont. How is this not a great episode? How is this not amazing? As Murdsy would say, it's amazing. How is this not amazing? You've Richard Donner, one of my favorite filmmakers ever, directed some of my favorite Twilight Zones that there ever was. So cool to see him back in the anthology director chair. Just love Richard Donner. Just love him. Absolutely love him. Just one of the best. One of the best. There's no doubt about it. Frank Darabont, just 2 years before directing The Shawshank freaking Redemption. Just 2 years, a year and a half even, before directing that movie. They come together here and just make one of the most largely forgettable waste of time episodes for me. I just don't understand this episode at all from a sense of like why anyone would like it. It's so fucking vanilla. It's beyond vanilla. It's vanilla with no fucking sugar. It's vanilla with no oomph to it. It's just, I don't know. I never liked this. Now, before I do review it, thank you, Slasher Fred. I was going to just get to this. Showdown was one of the segments in the movie Two Fisted Tales alongside King of the Road and Yellow. So basically what happened was HBO, they wanted to start like a brother/sister anthology series called Two Fisted Tales. It didn't get off the ground, but what they ended up doing was they made it like a 3-segment anthology with none other than the guy who plays the Grim Reaper. The guy who plays the Grim Reaper in Bill and Ted, William Sadler, he plays the kind of horror host in that. And instead of, doing the show, it's a movie with 3 anthology segments split up. And of course, William Sadler separates them. And it's those 3 segments. Yellow was borrowed as a thank you. Thank you so much, Tales from the Crypt. In turn, we'll let you use the other 2 and put them for season 4. So season 4 could save money. So instead of producing 14 episodes, Tales from the Crypt got to produce just 12 and insert this and King of the Road. I would have never let this air as a Tales from the Crypt, this particular one, Showdown. I don't like it at all. I think it's fucking really, really largely forgettable, dull. There's no life to this episode. Basically, briefly, it stars David Morse in a small role. David Morse barely in it, who he should have been the lead looking back on it. And Neil Giuntoli, who is also in Child's Play. He plays the Eddie Caputo character, the guy who's with Charles Lee Ray. They blows up in the house. That's Eddie Caputo. He's the lead of this. And it starts off there in the desert. Eddie Caputo fucking shoots David Morse. He's dead. Then he's in a saloon. And then all these people come around, and they're all people that he's killed in the past. And it's fucking, you're in ghostly limbo in this fucking saloon. And then we flash back. We have enough, what? Oh my God. I don't like this episode at all. It's like one of the most flat attempts to be like a Twilight Zone for me. This would fit much more like the 80s Twilight Zone, but even for that, it would be bad. I think this is just one of the weakest, most dull episodes, man. Just really didn't care for that at all. Really, I just thought it was an odd episode, considering the talent involved, considering you have Richard Donner, considering you have Frank Darabont as writer and director, respectively. I don't know how this episode doesn't just kick ass and take names. I don't know. I just don't know. Just one of the most flat episodes. It's not an F because it is competently made. I mean, Richard Donner, even if it's not a great movie, you know it's going to be technically sound. And even though Frank Darabont, I'm not interested in the themes of the episode, it's not to say that he did a bad job either. I just think this was a story that didn't work for this show. And I just think it fell out very flat. So for me, I know it's very low for the show, and I haven't had too many ratings that went this low for this. But for me, Showdown's going to be a D. I think Showdown's a very weak D, and it's on the border of being a failure. But with that technical involved, I just can't. You can't fail something with those 2 guys being involved from the technical standpoint. But with that said, to this point, the biggest disappointment of this season, and an otherwise, I think the best season of the show. I really do believe that. There's only one other episode I consider bad like this, and we'll get there towards the end. Showdown was definitely a skip. I agree. I think it was totally a skip. I just could not get into this one. I don't know. And there's some people I was reading because I was curious. I'm always curious, where do other people rank certain things that I have high, low, or the middle, whatever. A lot of people had Showdown their top 3. So maybe I missed something. I don't know. I just fucking couldn't. Of all the episodes I watched, even the one I hate more than this was the biggest, chore to get through. Shit. I don't know. Just very uninteresting. One of Crypt's most uninteresting. Grotty rant incoming. No rant on this one. I just disappointment, I think, more so than not. Showdown was definitely one of the segments in the Two-Fisted Tales. That's right. Richard Donner film. Richard Donner's incredible. It's crazy that David Warner's in the previous episode and Richard Donner did Omen. And then Christopher Reeve is in the episode before that, and Richard Donner did Superman 1 and parts of Superman 2. I know that's a big controversy. Did The Goonies, which Kay Kwan in the previous season. He worked with all these actors that were in other Crypt episodes, and then unfortunately this one just fell flat. I don't know. I just didn't care for this one. Like I said before, I much would have rather the Richard Donner, Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder reuniting to do What's Cooking. I think that would have been really unique and funny to see the Superman trio doing that episode. But, it is what it is. This is, one of the 2 episodes that fall flat because of that. In the Crypt Keeper segment, when he's about to have the duel fight, it's very Western-like, and it makes me think of the classic Western, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hell yeah, man. We got good brother Tom here. Hey, John and chat, getting here late again. It's already missed. Oh, man, well, you'll be happy to know that I have both of those. Let me catch up to speed here. Let me scroll up. They are both in the S right here. They were my 2 S's so far. So you will not be disappointed where I had those. I don't know where you stand on Showdown. I just need a sip here. My throat's getting a little bit dry. The allergies are killing me all. So. Oh, man. Sorry, I needed that. Also, Brad Dourif was in a Western, and it's funny, Brad Dourif and Eddie Caputo right there. Hey, Hearst, people saying hi to one another. Let's see. In Crypt Keeper, they make two classic Western movies and TV Western references, like in the opening where he says it's time for a good old gunfight at the OK Corral. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I love that. The Crypt Keeper segment's the only thing worth a shit in this episode for sure. But that is Showdown, a largely skippable one. And wow. I've had some opinions tonight. Definitely had some opinions tonight. But I don't think we're going to have one more controversial than this next episode. I really, truly don't think we can get more controversial and wild than this. Now, I said in the past, just now, Showdown didn't work. Showdown belonged on something else. This was the other episode of Two Fisted Tales from this season, of course. This is season 4, episode 9. This is King of the Road. A life on the edge hot rider named Billy comes to town run by Sheriff Garrett, who used to be the Iceman. He immediately dates and romances his daughter with ulterior motives linked to Garrett's past, for which he was once a champion of the hot rodding. Will Garrett accept Billy's challenge to the death? Ooh, directed by Tom Holland, of course, of Fright Night, of course, of Child's Play, of course. I think around this time, a little bit after this, was the Langoliers and Thinner, which, is what it is. I like the Langoliers, as silly as the effects are. This is my favorite episode of the season. I know probably people will be like, what? Like, what? Of all these great episodes, this one's your favorite? Yeah, it is. And I can't believe how overly hated this episode is. A lot of people had this on their bottom 5, bottom 3, bottom of this show ever. They say it's the worst Tales from the Crypt that there ever was. I am astonished by that. Where is there a bad episode here? You got to wake me up to smell the coffee on this. I loved this episode. Maybe, just maybe it is because I am a sucker for the type of story that it's trying to tell. Like, it's very much a more modernized version of like the Game of Pool episode of the Twilight Zone with Klugman and Jonathan Winters. And it's the whole theme of what will you do to be the best at something? Brad Pitt is this cocky, arrogant, good-looking, up-and-coming guy in the whole racing scene. He's never lost a race. He's the shit. All the women love him. He can't lose. He's just awesome. And he hears the story of this racer from long, long ago named the Iceman, who he kind of tracks down and sees has now abandoned this life because of a death that he inadvertently caused of a young man. He's turned to being a sheriff of the law. He's a single father with his pretty daughter that works at the local diner. And basically, Brad Pitt goes from trying to politely ask him, hey, will you race me? I want to share a quarter of the mile of the road with you to see if I'm really great, or not. And he starts off with kind of asking in nice ways and then goes to every single extent to try to get the Iceman back on the road for one last big bad race. Loved it. I loved every minute of this. I thought this was just absolutely brilliant. And honestly, the biggest reason for that is Brad Pitt. Now, I know a lot of people don't like Brad Pitt. A lot of people see a pretty face and no talent. I highly disagree. I think Brad Pitt's a great talent. I think he's a great actor, and I think this is one of his better roles from this time period without a doubt. You could see that this guy was just about to explode. True Romance was just about, I think, around 93 comes out. That was the movie that like people kind of started taking notice, and then bam, all of a sudden he's everywhere. And Brad Pitt ultimately goes on to win an Academy Award years and years after this, which is funny because the guy he was up against is in the following episode, Joe Pesci. He was the Irishman, and then Brad Pitt won for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Kind of crazy back-to-back episodes here. We get people that were against each other in an Oscar race. But I liked this whole story, and I liked Brad Pitt's performance. I thought it really drove it home where, he wants to truly prove that he's the best. Like, I know everybody thinks my shit don't stink. I know that I'm great. I know that I'm arrogant. I know that I can have sex with this guy's daughter right in his own house, right in his own bed. But, he wants to prove it to himself. It's always that mind and mentality of the challenger, of the up-and-comer. Am I better? Am I the best? Am I that damn good? I loved that storytelling, and I liked how he slowly but surely tries to talk this guy, played by Raymond J. Barry, out of being this cop, out of being this reserved guy, and dog him into this. And it starts off as, hey, would you mind? To he confronts him at a diner. You sure? Please, Iceman. You're the Iceman. Well, I'll be a snake on Sunday. Iceman, how you doing? I loved how he tries to charm him. And when he realizes he can't, that's when the horror gets dialed up. Oh, I'm gonna seduce your daughter, have sex with her. Oh, you still not gonna do it? Okay, I'll speed past you. You're a cop. You have to chase me. He gets away from him. Then, okay, I'll go to the length of, I'll kidnap your daughter. I'll blackmail you for the crime you got away with of that 27-year-old child or child. Well, I'm 27 years old, so it's still real to me, damn it. No, I'm 27, so whatever. Even though Brad Pitt's like 29 in this episode, looks like he's 20. Like, it's crazy how young Brad Pitt looks. I'll blackmail you for this. Anything to dog him into racing, and then it builds up finally to the race itself, which I just loved how the whole thing was directed by Tom Holland. It's very bright, it's very vibrant, feels 1980s, even though it's early 90s. A lot of light blues and stuff like that. And I liked how the car racing sequence kind of immenses, where he lets the daughter out of the trunk and, he hands her the gun and he goes, no, you're not going to shoot him. You're going to shoot in the air and then we're going to race. And I love how it's all shot where, Brad Pitt, I beat you, you beat me, you get it. You lose, you die. Fair enough, Iceman. Love that. They get in the car and then she kind of shoots the gun. They pass each other. And I love this camera shot. It's like a low shot. As she shoots the gun, the cars, we see them side by side take off. She turns and just starts running after them to see what the fuck's going to happen. Epic, really epic. I mean, I was so into this. I was sort of cheering for Brad Pitt because it's like, I understand where he's coming from. I understand the yearning to be the best at something. I always liked that story, and I thought it was really interestingly modernized for this type of format and platform and known as Tales from the Crypt, aka Two-Fisted Tales. Brad Pitt gets tricked. He crashes. You beat me out, man. Wrong. And throws the lighter and the car explodes. I loved it. I really do. I always loved this one. I was not aware of the overwhelming hate until I did show prep for this. It's very lowly rated. It's considered to be a bottom 5, if not the worst Tales from the Crypt there ever was. My only rebuttal, my only guess as to why that is because it is not really using the bread and butter that makes this show. Like what I was saying before, where what's cooking is the most Tales from the. That's why I think that episode is so beloved. It embraces being Tales from the Crypt the most. This one is definitely not Tales from the Crypt feeling, but man, it's still just a great episode of TV. You can't deny. I don't care if you called it, whatever you called it, Amazing Stories or The Outer Limits. I don't care what the fuck you called this. It's still a great episode of TV. That's kind of how I saw it. But that's just me. In my opinion, yeah, this is the highlight of the season. I would say it's the best episode of the season, and it's not even on here for me to select. So it is what it is. But I know this was originally written. This was not based off one of the comics. This was something just originally written for Two-Fisted Tales that they aired as a Crypt. So there's no comic based on this one for Crypt, at least. I don't know. I really liked it. I'm curious. I've not looked at the chat. I'm very curious to hear if I'm alone in this, if people think I'm crazy, if people have unsubscribed. I don't know. Also, the end of the Crypt Keeper says, who was the Mosh Man, which is a reference to the classic series, The Lone Ranger. Okay, sounds like Showdown worked for you. I just didn't work for me. I don't know. King of the Road, a young Brad Pitt. Careful, ladies. They were still throwing out the heart. The episode came out at the same time as Cool World did, which also had Brad Pitt, which is a lot better than Cool World. And I know there's a car accident in that movie too, but that's neither here nor there. Kim Basinger, of course. Okay. In the Crypt Keeper segment, you have him kind of doing a Shakespeare kind of thing, which, yeah, I know that they just filmed those intro and outro for this and Showdown, like around the episodes that were already filmed. And they even aired them back to back. So it was like very blatant, like, okay, this is our 2-episode block off. We only have to produce 12 episodes, which I do think helped. You had more money for, less episodes, definitely helped. Wasn't expecting you to be a fan of King of the Road. I think it only made it into the series because of Brad Pitt and they had already shot. They actually had. That's true. Would not be a Tales from the Crypt if that Two-Fisted Tales had failed. But I'm thrilled it was. I really am. I really don't understand why this is like over. I think it's just so overly hated. I don't see the hate here. I don't. I can see like not getting into it because it's not really Crypt-like. That I can understand. But saying it's like one of the biggest pieces of shit like people have, I don't see that at all. I don't see a piece of shit here at all. I think Tom Holland did a really good job. Of course, I think he directed like Lover Come Hack to Me and then comes back for this episode, which I thought was really good. This episode had the music by Warren Seven. Yes, has a really good soundtrack. Really good, playing with lights and colors and things like that. A really good story, really good dialogue and battle between champion and challenger. I don't know. Maybe I'm a sucker for this type of story, but I really liked it. So that is King of the Road. King has Sometimes They Come Back by Stephen King, which is less horror feel. That's right. And that's a movie I always really liked too, and I have reviewed on here. I think I did Stephen King special. I reviewed that. Always really liked that. Robert Russler is the lead greaser. Tim Matheson. I really always liked that movie. That movie's a little bit long, like the last 15 minutes runs and drags a little bit. But otherwise, I really like Sometimes They Come Back. I think that's a damn good Stephen King movie, but it is what it is. And that was right around this time too. I think it was like a year before this, 91, I believe. But let's move on into season 4, episode number 10. This is Maniac at Large. A mousy librarian overreacts to reports of a serial killer. Of course, directed by John Frankenheimer. Yes, John Frankenheimer, starring Blythe Danner, who everyone will remember from Meet the Parents. She's, I believe she's De Niro's wife in that. Of course, it does have Clarence Williams III, who is, of course, Tales from the Hood, which would be a few years after this. He's the host of Tales from the Hood. So cool to see him in this. Of course, it actually also has a very small role from Erwin Keyes. And any Friday the 13th, diehard Friday the 13th fan like me would remember Erwin Keyes is the very beginning of Friday the 13th when Annie goes to that diner. He's the guy sweeping up the floor, really weird looking guy. He also goes on to be in like House of a Thousand Corpses. He's still really giant, weird looking guy. Is a brief blink and you miss it role in this, but it was so cool. I was like, oh my God, Erwin Keyes, like just kind of jumped off my couch. Like Erwin, cool to see him in this. I really like this one too. This is a fun type of episode where it builds, thinking one thing, pays off with another. This is more classic, like a Tales from the Crypt episode. Like these last Showdown, King of the Road, for better or for worse. I think for worse with Showdown. I think for better with King of the Road. This is one that's, all right, we're back and now we're Tales from the Crypt. Like this is distinctly Tales from the Crypt. We have this timid lady who's in the life, afraid of her own shadow. She sees all these red herrings. We're introduced to all these kind of colorful characters. The weird Englishman who's trying to check out a book but forgot his library card. We have the one kid who's like, off the streets and stabs the newspaper that says Maniac at Large. We have the colorful, night guard played by Terrence Williams III, who I just loved in this. I thought he was really fun and, colorful, charismatic, funny, just a good screen presence that I thought he brought to this episode. I liked him a lot. They set up all these kind of red herrings. And then, of course, the lady that is in charge of the place, this like kind of bitch Karen type character is Salome Jens, who was a femme fatale back in like the 50s and the 60s. She's a beautiful lady back then. You would never know because she's just kind of buttoned up, nasty Karen in this. I was like, oh, damn it. But she's very strict and hard on Blythe Danner's character. And there's reports on the radio. There's a murderer on the loose. There's a maniac at large. And this episode does a really good job with the direction. Because again, this is a style of invasion slash, are we being invaded? Are we not being invaded? That's done so well. I like the tension built here. I like the kind of characters that we boom, 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 boom. We meet all these people. Oh, could it be, Erwin Keyes? Could it be the night guard? He's kind of quirky. He's kind of weird. We build up all of these things. We work you A, B, and C. We trick you. We do all these kind of false jumps. And then, of course, comes to the ultimate payoff where Blythe Danner is the fucking maniac at large, and she stabs the hell out of Salome Jens. I mean, I loved that. That was a twist when I first saw this. I never saw it coming. I was like, wow, like I was surprised. I was totally surprised at the end of this. I was like, that is a really cool little twist that is classic Tales from the Crypt. So I don't know. This one to me, John Frankenheimer's direction is a big reason to watch it. I really thought he did a good job. I don't know. The whole thing just kind of worked for me. I thought it was fun. It was entertaining. It was an interesting setup for a type of Maniac at Large story where we're in this library the whole episode. Interesting setting. And again, all these fun, colorful characters that, okay, who could it be? Who could it be? It's the most scared, mousy lady who's the lead of the show. I thought that was a nice twist. Didn't see it coming when I first saw it. And I thought it was well done. So I don't know. I really like this one. I'm going to come in with an A. I think this is a solid episode. So let me go back down here and we're going to give this one a solid A. Is this one also not This one's also not on here. Okay, so if it was on here, I'd drag it to the A category, but for some reason it's not. So it is an A. It's an A in my heart. Maniac at Large is definitely a Tales from the Crypt feel because you have a librarian freaking out over the reports of a serial killer in the neighborhood. And then, of course, classic Tales from the Crypt. It's not what you think. It's not the big bad Irwin Keyes. It's not the weird Englishman who's trying to hit on her, trying to talk about literature with her. It's not the quirky night guard that's reading like pornography. It's none of the above. It's the person we're watching. That's Tales from the Crypt classic twist. Like I liked the twist a lot. I thought it worked for this episode. This episode where the too many Crypt Keeper puns are getting into bad Freddy Krueger territory. The episode was good, but not great. Okay, fair enough. That's totally fair. We got Christopher in the house doing a little dab. What's going on, Christopher? Hope all is well with you, buddy. Friday tomorrow. I know you're excited for the weekend. Free at 5 o'clock, my friend. Chris is my good coworker, man. We take care of business together. We're a tag team. We're gonna take on Magneto and get our Apocalypse and get our asses kicked. This episode has a former singer, Adam Ant, and Clarence William III, who was known for his role in the Mod Squad. And of course, Clarence William III was also Tales from the Hood. That was the big kind of role for him. What's up, Christopher? Throwing up these. As we move on, though, we get into one of Tales from the Crypt's all-time best. And an episode to me that just defines the show, an episode that I absolutely love, and an episode that never fails to put a smile on my face, no matter how many times I've seen it. I watched it more than once for this. That's how much I love this next episode. I watched it twice for show prep, just out of sheer enjoyment. It's directed by Joel Fatfuck Silver, Joel Silver, who's the producer of like everything action-wise. This is the only thing he ever sat in the director's chair to direct, and I know they had an extra large director's chair for his fat ass. This is season 4, episode number 11. This is Joe Pesci in Split Personality. A swindler, Jack, loves money and ... twins. One day he meets rich twins that show interest in him. Yes. Split Personality. Now, Fred Decker also wrote the story in this. We have intros in the beginning from a lot of people that would work on The Sopranos. We have Joe Pantoliano, who was in, of course, Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone in season 1 as a blackjack dealer. We have Burt freaking Young, may he rest in pepperonis. He's the guy at the table, and then Joe Pesci. So we have all these guys that were involved in Sopranos and Goodfellas and all these great films over the years, all in one scene right in the beginning. Really cool to see if you're a fan of that stuff. Joe Pesci, we learn in that scene, is sort of a swindler, is a con man, is sort of looking for all these angles in life. And he tells the story while he's in bed with this prostitute that he yearns to be more. He yearns to get that big score. He yearns for love and maybe marriage. And then, of course, one day he's driving along the road, his tire pops, and he goes to this house. And some of the lines are just so memorable, where the classic scene of Joe Pesci, it's become a famous GIF and like small meme now, where Joe Pesci walks up to the house, he sees this beautiful mansion, and Joe Pesci, that missing a beat, what the fuck is this piece of shit? It's just like it's the most nicest mansion you've ever seen. What the fuck is this piece of shit? And then he goes into the house and he's looking at the pictures on the walls, and he sees a picture of none other than fucking Richard Donner. It's Richard Donner in the photo. Fun fact I learned on show prep. It's Richard Donner in the photo. And he goes, what a goopy looking fuck he was. Like only Joe Pesci could make it charming and make it work. And then he's held at gunpoint. Hey, who are you? And there's these two beautiful, voluptuous twins whose legs go on forever. And he's like, whoa, I'm not here. My car broke down. I'm sorry. I'm not trespassing. I need a ride into town, or I need a phone to call somebody. And basically what happens is they fall in love with him, but these two twin sisters can't share. And of course, their names are April and June. And Joe Pesci has the classic line, what the hell happened to May? I love this shit. It's one of the best lines in the whole series. Like, I'm April, I'm June. Where the hell is May? I don't know why. I always thought that line was perfectly delivered by Joe Pesci. Like, I don't know. I watched it twice and I laughed both times I watched it. It's fucking hysterical. As he sort of wins them over, and he's like, okay, wait a minute though. There's this big problem where they don't know how to share. and they're sharing him, and he's telling one the same thing as the other. Oh, you're not as beautiful as your sister, or you are as beautiful as your sister. He's kind of swindling them and tricking them and stuff like that, until he comes to the ultimate conclusion: if I really want to pull this off, I'm going to have to pretend that I have a twin myself that I have never mentioned before. And basically he comes up with this whole alter ego where the only difference is he talks in like an accent and has a ponytail. That's the only difference. And Joe Pesci marries these two women as both alter ego, and the big excuse is, oh, we trade places in South Africa, like, because why not? Like, why not? And they buy it completely. And then, of course, by the end, his cover is blown, and the two decide we will share him, and they basically cut him in half with a big old chainsaw. And that's the big like climax of the episode, is we get this amazing practical makeup effect shot of a body cut in half. We see one side is Joe Pesci, and the other, it's like the insides of his bodies, his organs and blood all spilling out into the bed as he's laying in bed with both twins. Both April and June have got to finally learn how to share Joe Pesci, who they've literally cut in half and split down the middle, hence split personality. One of the best Tales from the Crypt, easily top 5 Tales from the Crypt for me. I think it has to be in your top 10. I like it way more than What's Cooking. I know What's Cooking is considered the magnum opus of the show. I would watch this way more over What's Cooking, man. I don't know. I just think it has humor. It has the special makeup effects. It has Joe Pesci just taking this story and elevating it to a level that I don't believe any other actor could have. Are there better actors than him? Yes. But Joe Pesci just gave it a certain charm that nobody else could have delivered. And I thought Joe Pesci did a great job, man. It makes me miss Joe Pesci. Like, I wish he did more. I wish he worked more after, like, I know 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag, that flopped. And a lot of the stuff he did after that were very bit roles, like, Irishman. It was so cool to see him back and get an Oscar nomination. I just love him, man. Joe Pesci's just such a likable character actor. And this is one of my favorite performances from him because he's just so on the money and so funny in this. This was the same year as Home Alone Part 2 came out. So this was shot around the same time. And Joel Silver did a good job in the director's chair. I like the old school music that they use in the episode. I think the twins are kind of attractive until they become scary. I think this is a one of the more well-rounded, great Tales from the Crypt episodes to me. I think it's an S. I think it's an absolute. I don't think there's any lower you could give it. It's worth the hype. It's just such a perfect episode of this show. And I think that, a lot of people would agree with me with that. I would be surprised if there are people. I've heard people, and I like I said, I do read reviews for all of these. I was so curious to see if people didn't. There are quite a few people that don't like this one. And one of the things I read that blew me away was that someone said no one would remember this episode if it wasn't for Joe Pesci. Now, you're here for Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci is the best thing in it, but I completely disagree that it would be forgotten entirely. I don't know about that at all. Now, it's remembered mostly for Joe Pesci, but that's not to say that the episode itself is not damn great itself. And it is. I really do believe that it is. So that's my opinion. Let's see what y'all have to say. Chris saying amen. Amen, brother. Amen. This episode came out at the same time. My Cousin Vinny Home Alone 2 stars Joe Pesci. Yeah, Joe Pesci was rolling in 1992. Joe Pesci, wise guy. Yep. Burt Young from Rocky. Yep. And freaking Joe Pantoliano, who goes on to be Ralphie in The Sopranos. And I think just a couple years before Baby's Day Out, where he basically plays the Joe Pesci type character of maybe Joe Mantegna played the Joe, but similar movie. Baby's Day Out was a Home Alone ripoff that just didn't make money. In the episode, Crypt Keeper playing a card shark. That's right. Yep. And I love the intro. Hey, Internet, Eric's here. Saw you were streaming before with some of your other buddies. I don't know if it was on your channel, if it was on another channel, but I checked it because StreamYard was giving me a hard time, and I saw that channel was going. So, Eric, hope all is well with you, man. I know Eric just reviewed Late Night with the Devil if you want to check out his review. So, always good to hear from Eric, a very, very cool guy. People saying, what up, Eric? Poor Joe gets a chainsaw to the dick. Yeah, and cut in half. I don't know what's worse. I think they're both pretty bad, man. I don't know. My favorite scene is when Joe Pesci laying in bed telling his wife, dude, yeah, and he, like, there's one point where she's like, are you gonna fuck me, or are you gonna pay me to sit here be your psychologist? And he goes, shut up, shut the fuck up. Like, he gets in her face, like he's gonna hit her, and he's like, back to my story. He just overreacts so bad, it's like gonna be like violent, and he's like, shut the fuck up. He has like the stogie in his mouth, and he's like, he's ready to fucking go 12 rounds with Frazier. It's funny, man. I don't know, just so funny. Some personality is fantastic. Comedy's twist of horror is so much fun. It's just perfect. Like I don't have one flaw, one nitpick, one issue. It's perfect. It really is a perfect episode of TV. I really couldn't see not liking it, but people don't. There are some people that don't. I actually really like the movie Gone Fishing that Joe did with Danny Glover. I really like that movie too. I don't know, man. Like his career would be an interesting one to do a deep dive on, because it's like he just stopped. It's almost like he stopped trying. Like I don't think Hollywood was ready to give up on him. I think for whatever reason, he just got out of the business. I would love to know why. Like, I would love to hear like an hour-long shoot interview with Joe Pesci, like why did you stop acting after Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag and like only do small, brief appearances and things? I would love to know why that is. Like, I really would. I've never heard him talk about that if he has. If you don't like split personality, you don't like Tales from the Crypt. I mean, that's a fair statement. I mean, yeah, honestly, for real, it has everything that defines the show. Don't say that Pesci is funny. He gets very offended. How funny am I? What kind of funny? Yes, exactly. Funny like a clown? Funny how? Nikki, you're a really funny guy. It's great stuff. Absolutely love Split Personality. To me, one of the essential Tales from the Crypt fucking episodes. While I say I like King of the Road, and I do like King of the Road the best, it's my favorite of the season. This is the standout episode of the season. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, if you're gonna pick one episode from season 4 that you're gonna watch, I think you have to pick that one. Like, I love Seance. I really love None But the Lonely Heart. I really love Beauty Rest. I thought Beauty Rest was great. There's a lot of really good ones. This is the one, though, you have to. It's just the must watch of the bunch. It really is. Whether it's your favorite or not, it's the must watch. Moving on next, though, is the one that I actually had never fucking seen until this episode, this week for show preps. And I'm glad I watched it because I really like this one too. This is season 4, episode number 12. This is Strung Along. An aging puppeteer suspects his much younger wife has a lover. Yes, this is directed by Kevin Yeager, who, of course, I think rebounded from Lower Birth. That was the other episode he did in season 2. That episode, upon a rewatch, just didn't work for me. This one did, though. I really liked this one. And of course, Kevin Yeager also helped write this one. Of course, it stars Donald O'Connor as this aging puppeteer, and he has this really hot younger wife. And of course, she is, you're suspecting her that she might be cheating on him. Of course, we bring in Zach Galligan, who I've always been a big fan of. And fun fact, my parents met him like the week before Gremlins came out. They were back in Studio 54 days. Mama Papa Grande, they were in Studio 54 chilling with Zach Galligan. And he was like, yeah, I got this movie coming out in a week or so. It's called Gremlins. They were like, oh, we'll go see it, And then, who knew that Gremlins was going to come this big phenomenon it is? I have a picture somewhere of my parents, Zach Galligan, and whoever his date was that night. So it's really cool to see Zach Galligan in this. Of course, I love Zach Galligan in Gremlins in 1 and 2. I love him in Waxwork 1 and 2. He generally playing a good guy. And here we're introduced to him. We think the same thing. We see this aging puppeteer that's kind of, again, down in hard times, not getting a lot of work anymore. His wife has become complacent. He's not happy. He has this very interesting relationship with his lead puppet named Coco. Is the doll alive? Is a part of him, meshed itself into the doll? We never get that explanation. It feels a little bit like magic with, Anthony Hopkins and Burgess Meredith and, oh my God, what the fuck? And what the fuck is her name? Anne Margaret. Sorry. Anne Margaret's in that. So that is sharp. Not as sharp. Maybe the delay did it. I don't know. Usually a monster with names, but that name escaped me for a minute. Anne Margaret was beautiful in the day. But it's kind of like that where it's never really explained. Like is his head. Like there's some kind of telepathy between he and Coco that they never really go too far into. But they're communicating somehow. He's become complacent. The wife is like, you don't let me have friends, even though he does. She's kind of a hot lady. She wants to get out of the house. She goes to these acting classes to escape him, even though it's a lie. She's really going out to cheat on him, which is kind of sad. But he gets this big opportunity. He gets a letter in the mail. Oh, we want you to come back and do one last big puppet show for us. And he's so excited about this. And they want to help him by bringing this younger guy that, he can kind of mentor. And that's Zach Galligan. He seems like this nice kid. He's eager to learn. You're my idol. You're my inspiration. Similar kind of in a way to the ventriloquist dummy with Bobcat Goldthwait and Don Rickles, where it's like, oh, you're my idol. I'm trying to be like you. That aspect of it is similar. The rest of the episode, not really. But the two of them, they meet. He's learning him the craft after begrudgingly being like, I don't want to work this young kid. Slowly but surely, we go to find out that Zach Galligan is the one that she's having the affair on him with, and she's fucking Zach Galligan. And basically, they have this whole plan to kill him. And there's this whole thing where they trick. It looks like one of the dolls is stabbing the wife to death, and he runs over and, oh my God, and they kill his ass. And basically it was a whole trick. Like, he's been training him the whole time, and he's been using it to try to trick him into thinking the wife's getting stabbed to death. And no, my wife, my beautiful wife, that I liked. I thought that was pretty smart. And then the finale, I thought, was the most haunting thing. Like, that last visual we see of this episode, I thought was really haunting, as these two kind of get up and we see that the other dummy, Coco, has come to life. Is it partially him? Is it just a living doll? I don't really know. It's not really explained. But it's a very interesting final shot where Donald O'Connor, he's kind of above the bed like this. Half of his face is human, half of his like a dummy. And he's holding them up, their dead bodies, like marionettes. I thought that was a really cool, like, nightmarish, long-lasting visual in my brain as we left the screen. I was like, that's one of the more haunting as we leave the screen shots that I've seen in this show. And I thought it was really effective. Now, with that being said, is this as good as Ventriloquist Dummy? No. Is this as good as No Strings from Tales from the Dark Side? No. Is this as good as the dummy from the Twilight Zone? No. But it's still good. It's still worthy of being like, dummy horror is actually there's a lot of good dummy horror out there. Ventriloquist horror, if you will. And this fits right in. I would throw this right in the bag with good ventriloquist horror. I thought this was damn good. I don't know. I definitely liked the acting. I thought everyone all around was good. I thought the lady playing the wife was just, Patricia Charbonneau. Oh man, she was just so like, I hated her. She did such a good job at making you hate her. She is pretty, but like, oh man, I wanted him to be like, get out of here, you bitch. Like, but I guess she gets her ultimate comeuppance at the end. So I liked this one. I think it's solid. I think it's passable. I'm in like the B+ A- range with this. I'm gonna give it an A-. I'll bump it up for a B+ just because of that lasting visual. I thought that was such a memorable, lasting visual as we left the screen here for this episode. So I'm going to go with an A- on this one for sure. Let's see. I think we were here. The end credits series scene where the camera exits the Crypt Keeper's mansion is so great. The opening flashback scene with the puppeteer and his use make me think of the 50s show Howdy Doody. Exactly. And it's definitely, you can see guys like Bray Wyatt totally when he was Dr. Howdy or whatever, Mr. Howdy or whatever, the Fiend character. That is totally where that's inspired from, is the Howdy Doody shows. In Crypt Keeper, you have the Crypt Keeper on a torture rack, and at the end you have the Crypt Keeper in a guillotine. Sure. Yep. Tired of the ventriloquist thing. Acting was good, but not a big fan of the episode. That's understandable too. I could totally see this one being a little bit flat. I had never seen it before. I was like, wow, I've never seen this one before. And I was actually thoroughly surprised. It's definitely, to me, the last really good one of the season, because these last two, Uncle Howdy, thank you so much. I was going to say, I could not think of the name. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, Uncle Howdy. May he rest in peace. These last two, I don't mind this next one, but the last one, forget it. This is, of course, season 4, episode 13, starring, of course, Tim Dalton. This is Werewolf Concerto. An Agatha Christie-style mystery sees the inhabitants of a remote hotel terrorized by rumors of a werewolf prowling the area. Not to fear, as a self-appointed werewolf hunter is amongst them, but might he have a dark secret of his own? Yes, Werewolf Concerto. I love the setup with this one. Love the setup. We've got a bunch of really good character actors in like a lodge. We got the worst Unsolved Mysteries host, Dennis Farina. Sorry, Dennis, but you're no Robert Stack. Robert Stack is the best. I love Robert Stack. Just absolutely love it. Walter Gotell, who was just in Sleepaway Camp Part 2, which was really cool. Reginald Vell Johnson, who was Carl Winslow. And weird, has anyone heard the stuff with Reginald Van Johnson? Has anyone heard that stuff where apparently he had sex with P. Diddy? Like, what the hell? Like, it is just odd that fucking P. Diddy had sex with Carl Winslow. Like, what? Like, this world is just, every time I think you're okay, it's just like, what? Nope, another thing that you never thought coming, man. Like, bizarre. You don't believe me? Look that story up. Apparently, Reginald Van Johnson got it on with P. Diddy. So, yeah, weird. But he's always a character actor I really liked. Wolfgang Puck is in there as a character named Wolfgang, which is pretty funny. And then Beverly freaking D'Angelo from the Christmas Vacation movies, who I wish to God was in this more. She was the best thing in this, even though I love Timothy Dalton in it, former James Bond. I always looked at this kind of, especially now, so with like Knives Out movies, this is like the Knives Out, Agatha Christie, Murder on the Orient Express kind of set up for a Tales from the Crypt, where we have a bunch of good character actors. We know them from other things. They're in a setting. We kind of meet them. And then, of course, there's a whole mystery. Who's the werewolf? Where's the werewolf? What's going on? I like Timothy Dalton in it. I never minded him as James Bond, although the movies he did as James Bond weren't the best. I think he was just in weaker James Bond films. I don't think it was his fault. I think he only played Bond twice, 2 or 3 times. He was definitely one of the lesser guys to play, not lesser actors to play him, but played him the least time. I think George Lazenby is the only guy who played him less. But with that being said, I really like Timothy Dalton in the episode. He is a insane chemistry with Beverly D'Angelo. I love their chemistry with one another. As fucking Beverly D'Angelo's got her all her yits out and they're just going back and forth talking. Just some of the best stuff. I was so into their relationship and I wanted the whole 20 minutes to be about them. And I think that's where this episode falls flat. It's the most predictable one. And it's kind of one of those things where I enjoy the journey to get to the end. But at the same time, I wish this could have been longer so we could have fleshed out some of the more red herrings. I would have liked to have heard more from Carl Winslow. I would have liked to have heard more from Dennis Farina. I would have liked to hear more from Walter Gotell. I would have liked to have heard more from these people to be like, okay, is this person suspicious? Is that person suspicious? It's just so obvious that it's Timothy Dalton is the fucking werewolf that it's all right, saw that coming. But they have another freaking, perspective and thing where Beverly D'Angelo is actually a vampire too. And that's another twist that, again, you could kind of see coming, but she's barely in the episode. I don't know. I want to like this one so much more than I do. I think this one, where Yellow is the longest Tales from the Crypt, this one desperately needed another 20 minutes to, give me more of these people. This one could have been an hour. And I think you would have still, been struggling to get enough out of each person to really make this work. I really like the setup. Like I said, it really does feel like an old school game of Clue. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so into this. But I don't know. It just doesn't stick the landing quite. For me, it's like a C plus B minus area. I'll bump it up just for Beverly D'Angelo alone. I think she's so good in this that I have to bump it up to a B minus. But with that being said, it's not terrible. It's just I want it so much more. I wanted so much more. I guess this is one where I yearned for a little bit more than I got. But that's not to say it's bad. And I could totally see people saying this is one of their favorite ones. If you like that setup, if you like a Knives Out or Murder on the Orient Express or Clue, something like that, you would totally have fun with this. I just think the mystery is too obvious and we don't get enough of the other characters. That's just me, though. Let's see what you guys have to say. Let me go here. Beverly D'Angelo, hot ghoul. Dude, wow. And it's funny. I never saw her in that light. Maybe because I'm just so much I grew up with the Christmas Vacation movies and she was always the mom character. So I never saw her in that light until I watched this episode. I'm like, wow, she's a beautiful lady. And she goes on to be in the Harold and Kumar sequel, Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay. She's in that with her yits out. So, I mean, just a really underrated actress, man. I always really liked Beverly. And so, I don't know. I think she's really, really quite something. Oh, no, Curious. Oh, shit. Tom. Tom, I will tell you this. I know you'll be pleased. I know you came in a little late. I know you'll be pleased with my thoughts on None But the Lonely Heart. I know you'll be pleased with my thoughts on The Seance, which I both had S tiers. you're not going to like my thoughts on Curiosity Kills. And if you're curious to know about it, Curiosity Kills, my friend. R.I.P. Bray Wyatt. Yes, R.I.P., man. One of the best. Reginald Bill Johnson from Family Matters. Yes. The story goes they were at a party and like a few people saw them go into a room together and they apparently had sex. Like that is the story that is insane. But yeah, that's apparently what happened. Werewolf Concerto makes me think of those horror werewolf movies. They too make those werewolf movies scary anymore nowadays because people of like Jacob from Twilight. Oh, okay. You're saying, yeah, the werewolf movie now is not the same as it was then. That's true. Also, Reginald Van Johnson was a werewolf in the movie called Wolfen. Yes, which is, I think, it's a long movie, but it's definitely a solid one. I really believe if Bray lived longer, he would have eventually gone into acting as a horror villain. Oh man, he would have been an awesome actor. I was there. I know he had a brief run as WWE champion, but I went to a house show in Madison Square Garden where he defended in the main event against John Cena, and he won clean. It was like, dude, wow! Like we saw the stars for that guy. We just thought he was going to be such a big deal, and unfortunately, it just didn't. I don't know. They took that title from him way too prematurely. And then he got himself over again as the Fiend. Then they took it again from him prematurely with Goldberg, who I can't stand. That was a really big letdown. He deserved better, and it's just such a shame that guy's gone. I'm going to see Die Hard now with a different perspective from now on. Dude, yeah, I can't watch now I watch Family Matters. I'm going to fucking think of that. Like, goddamn, like, oh my God, so weird. Beverly D'Angelo's best role since The Sentinel. Hell yeah to that. I'll agree with that. In the opening, Crypt Keeper, you have doing the whole brain on drugs. Yes, that's right, with the eggs. Yep, which Freddie did the year before. Vacation is awesome. Love Vacation and Christmas Vacation. Two of my favorite comedies for sure. European Vacation, Vegas Vacation. And the Vacation reboot. That movie could take a vacation. That's a horrible movie. Marty's here from the Trash Picture Show. Yo, Grande. Marty is the man. And I know he's good friends with Jen. And Jen and her, I think it's her son, they do like reviews on these and they do rankings and stuff. Jen is one of the best fucking YouTubers ever because she makes me look like I'm comatose. I used to like to think I bring a good energy, a good vibe, positive spirit, and electricity to the show. Jen is like, there's nobody like Jen, man. She is absolutely incredible. So cheers to them. And I love their Tales from the Crypt, retrospectives and stuff like that. Very interesting to watch. And I know Marty's good friends with her. So hope all is well with you, Marty. Hope all is well. But unfortunately, that leads us to the last episode of season 4. And while I do think this is the best season of Tales from the Crypt, if this episode hadn't been in it, I would say it's one of the all-time greatest seasons of television. And it still is. I do think it still is a great, great overall episode or season of any show ever. But this is the worst episode of this season by a country mile for me. And this is Curiosity Killed. Season 4, episode 14. A bitter elderly woman learns that her husband and a laid-back couple are hiding a youth potion from her while camping in the wilderness. Directed by Elliot Silverstein, stars Margot Kidder, and Margot Kidder deserved better than this. They have Margot Kidder in some of the worst, like, old lady makeup I've ever seen. They have fucking Kevin McCarthy, who I always really liked. They have him in bad makeup. And they have this other couple there as well. And, like, this is just one of the weakest episodes that we've covered up to this point. Like, it's definitely, I think it's in the conversation for the worst ever of the show. It's, put it to you this way, I like Collection Completed more than this episode. And I hate Collection Completed. I don't know if it's as bad as the season 2 episode I have there. I can't fucking think of the name of it off the top of my head. But I don't know if it's quite that bad, but this is really bad. Basically, Margot Kidder and her husband, they're out with this other couple on a trip in the wilderness. A lot of this episode is just bickering and arguing. No, fuck you. No. I wasted 45 years of my life. I wasted my youth with you. I wasted this with you. It is just bickering that is so uninteresting. It makes you want to turn it off. Argue. They come up with this whole thing where, we're finally going to let you know what's going on 17 minutes into a 25-minute episode. These flowers were left here for us, and we drink out of them. It's the fountain of youth, and we can return to our youthful selves. And, like, it's just so dumb. I just don't. Oh my god, this one like just boggles my brain why they even decided to make this. And like I said, Margot Kidder deserves so much better. Margot Kidder, one of my favorite actresses, one of the most beautiful women, a Canadian scream queen. Whether it be Sisters, whether it be Black Christmas, whether it be the Amityville Horror, so many great performances that Margot Kidder has given in horror projects. This was just weak for me. You have her running around like this old lady, like she's running around the whole episode like she's fucking SpongeBob SquarePants running into a fucking Krusty Krab, just running around like, oh, horrible. She takes the youth serum and like steals it from them. They're like, oh, she's just gonna get terribly sick from it. And then, oh, plot twist, she put alcohol in theirs. They're the ones that get sick. She gets put to youth. And then the fucking dog decides to just maul her. And they find the dog at the end, and it's a puppy. And that's the end. Like, what? Like, what was the fucking point? Why would you waste Margot Kidder, who was not right for this role? Why not cast an actual elderly woman, whereas the other three actors you had were actually elderly? Kevin McCarthy was like 78 when this episode. Okay, cool. Why do we have 44-year-old Margot Kidder in fucking bad old people makeup running around like fucking SpongeBob trying to make a fucking Krabby Patty at the Krusty Krab? Like, what? I completely baffled. It's the sore thumb of the season. It's like, oh, you were perfect. You had one episode in Showdown that maybe wasn't a great episode, but everything else was either like B or better. And then this just really is the only F. I think this is an absolute F. I would never watch this again. The only reason I rewatched it was for show prep, and I regret it for that. I regret it for wasting my fucking time. I hate this one. Easy F. Don't see any positive in it. Like I said, I had my way. You had Richard Donner, you had Margot Kidder, you had Christopher Reeve, all involved in the same season. I would have recasted Bess Armstrong with Margot Kidder and had Richard Donner direct What's Cooking. And then you had that band, that Superman trio reunion for What's Cooking. I think that would have been so cool. It was so meta. But again, maybe that's my own brain running a little too far wild. But that is what it is. What up, Marty? Yo, Hill. Another episode you skip. Okay. Okay, here we go. Undead of Night. Funny, I think King of the Road was the worst of the season. I'm going to have to find a shovel to dig myself out of the graveyard. No. Hey, we're dead. We're completely even on the ones you weren't here for, unfortunately. Episode 1 of season 4, I put as an S, and Seance, I put as an S. So I know you liked that. I don't know. I just didn't like it. I don't know. Running, it's just like, what? Margot Kidder, like she's hunched. Like I can't do it justice because someone would have to film me running. She's running like hunched. I guess she's trying to run like an old lady. But like old ladies don't run that. Like what? Like what is this? And her ass, like she's fucking running like a chicken. Like what the? I'm like, oh my God, like not this one, man. Like it's just a chore. And all the bickering, like fucking over what? Like, oh, you wasted my life. Bro, you wasted my time. You wasted my 25 minutes. 2 years later, after the episode aired, Whoopi Goldberg was on the episode Dead Weight, and the late Madge Sinclair would appear in The Lion King. Well, Whoopi Goldberg is also Dead Weight. Dead Weight was season 3. That was Toby Hooper, Vanity. I actually like that one. Laughing hard at your reasons. Okay, at least I could be entertaining in the small disagreement here for worst. But hey, we have some of the best in common, so that's cool. I thought the bad makeup and casting was playing up the campy feel. Okay, I mean, so you saw it as they were playing at the campy feel because they would cast somebody like Margot Kidder, who was even at 44 years old, still looking really good and youthful. Like when she drinks the youth potion, they take her out of the old woman makeup and she's Margot Kidder, like we know and love her. That was fun, but young Margot Kidder has no lines. She just gets mauled by a fucking dog, and that's it. Like, I don't know, man. I could never get into this one. And this is one where I did read reviews, and most people were along I hate this one. mantra, which I can totally see. I hate this one too. I think this is the weakest of the season. But with that being said, I still do think this is the best episode of Tales from the Crypt. I know that season 3 did not technically have an F in it, and I know people probably say, well, isn't that one more consistent? No, like if you go episodes 1 through 13, if you leave Curiosity Kills out of it, you go 1 to 13, you have literally, I think, like 9 A's, like 9 A's or better, and like 3 that are B or worse. So that's crazy consistency. I did rank them here. I could do my best. I just list them in order of how I ranked them. I did rank them on my phone. At the bottom, Curiosity Kills, Showdown, On Dead Man's Chest, Werewolf Concerto, This'll Kill Ya, What's Cooking, Maniac at Large, The New Arrival, Beauty Rest, Seance, Strung Along, None But the Lonely Heart, Split Personality, King of the Road. I actually know. I'm sorry. Strung Along was lower. I skipped Strung Along, but whatever. I had Strung Along below Beauty Rest and Seance. Sorry, I fucking read it wrong on my phone. But is what it is. I really love this season. I think it's a fantastic season of television from top to bottom. It really is really good. It's the most consistent. And I don't know. I'm curious now. I was going to try to do these bi-monthly. Granted, in July, I was debating on Back to the Twilight Zone because I still want to do season 2 of that. So we may just do both. We may do 1 week Twilight Zone, the next week Crypt. That would be a fun thing to do in July. Make it more TV centered. So we'll get there. We got Hearst Hill saying season 2. Season 2 may have like the most, I don't know. Season 2 might have the most S's. I don't know how many S's overall it had, but might have the most S's. But there's a few here and there in season 2. That's the one issue of going longer. That's the longest season. I think it's 20 something episodes. That's the one season where it's like, there's a lot more minor ones, where as you get more good ones, you do get more minor ones too with that. Great show as always. Only, hell yeah. We have Mateo throwing up one of these. Quickly, I'll promote the show for next week. Next week, we will be talking all things Director Spotlight. I decided to shake it up a little bit. Instead of Actor Spotlight, we're going to do Director Spotlight. Now, we're not going to do the entire filmography of this guy. However, we'll do my top 10, and we'll go in order from 10 to 1, worst to first, or I guess in this case, least best to best. Of course, we're going to be discussing and spotlighting Mr. Stanley Kubrick, one of my all-time favorite filmmakers, one of the all-time greats. Very excited to discuss his filmography and give my top 10. I have, obviously he only made 13 films, so most likely, unless it's, Fear and Desire, that's not making the list. But, we'll probably have all the same movies on the top 10, just not in different, just probably in different slots. But it'll be very here to hear your guys' thoughts, as opposed to my list. But if you guys want, when that episode airs, let me know your top 10 Kubrick. If you guys are watching the replay of this, let me know your favorites and least favorites of season 4. If you want to let me know your entire ranking from your worst to first, that'd be awesome. I'd be loving to hear that. Hearst Hill says, see you, Grande, in the Day of the Dead with Alpha. Yeah, brief plug on that too. I know I plugged it earlier. This Saturday night at 10 p.m., I'll be streaming with Alpha Romero on his channel, where we do a retrospective of the darkest day in horror the world has ever known, Day of the Dead. So very excited to talk with Alpha. Just a great guy, very knowledgeable in the genre, and a great friend to me. So very excited to talk all things Day of the Dead. If you're not doing anything Saturday night, or you get home early Saturday night, come in, tune in, check us out. It's going to be a lot of fun. But until then, I'll be starting my Stanley Kubrick show prep very soon, and we will catch you next time only on the Graveyard. Too sweet peace. Good night, bulls and ghouls, kitties. Until next time, I'm the Crypt Keeper, John Grande. So long, everybody.